There's too much glare in the background from there. But I also have like a frame of Escanor from Seven Deadly Sins in the background. So a lot of anime artwork. I got to let all the girls know when I bring back that I've never had sex before, right? Otherwise, what else would yeah? So
All right, sorry about that, guys. Had some issues with Streamlabs and Discord windows being open at the same time. Finally fixed that, so we should be. I think everybody's here if we're ready to get started.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, awesome. So this is going to be the first Spectre's Untitled podcast here. We're just going to be discussing, various political events week to week. This week, we're looking at some new information that came out about the January 6th incident from Rolling Stone. If everybody would like to go around and introduce themselves and do an opening statement after I read the first topic, you should have at least about 2 minutes apiece. We can try and keep it to that. And then I'll just open it up to discussion from there.
Okay.
Question, are we doing introduction and opening statement at the same time?
Yes, we'll just go ahead and... Actually, let's just do introductions first. That way you can keep, your opening statements to 2 minutes apiece. I think that will work better.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So we want to start with IRI?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Spectre. Always love chatting with people about important stories like this one. I go by I'm really important. I talk politics on my channel. We focus on Capitol Hill, what's going on in the House and the Senate. For example, we're tracking this infrastructure bill right now that the Democrats are ironing out. Very exciting. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
All right, excellent. I just want to go right down the line to Ukerist next.
Yeah, hey guys, I go by Ukerist on Twitch. I don't really stream anymore, but I sometimes hop on panels like these and talk about politics and culture and everything else. In real life, I study political science, so this is stuff that's really, really interesting to me. So I'm excited to chat with you guys.
All right, perfect. Hans, you're up.
Hello, everybody. I am Hans. I'm still getting my stream up because I am lazy, and also I missed him. I'm completely disorganized. I was at a brewery with my older brother, so I'm back. Hi, everybody. I'm Hans, everyone's favorite, extremely apolitical video game streamer. Just hanging out, doing various apolitical things. But I appreciate Spectre having me on. Still excited to talk about stuff that I care about, and this is kind of one of those things. And just happy to be back having a chat with everybody. So I'm excited for tonight. So thank you for having me. And you can find me at Hanz of Hakir on all my shit. I post weeb shit and shitty memes and my lifting videos on Twitter. And I play video games poorly on my channel. So you should definitely check that out.
All right, perfect. Thanks, buddy. And Rob, I don't think we've actually met before, but it's good to see you. I've seen your content and very interested to hear what you have to say here tonight. If you just want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure. Thank you, Spectre. Glad to be here. My name's Rob Noerr. You can find me mostly on twitch.tv/Rob Noerr, as it's spelled there. I'm also in Normal America with Rob Noerr. That is my real name. I consider myself a conservative populist. I stream because I feel that most of the people in flyover country don't have a voice that's articulated much anymore. I'm no one special. My job is I work in home health care with people with developmental disabilities, but happy to be here tonight.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Sam, I think you're up next if you just want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, I'm Sam the Human. I'm a researcher in natural language processing, and I run the Twitch Politics Discord. So I'm usually around on Twitch. If you can see me, I'm usually in someone's stream, in someone's chat. You can always say hi. I stream at Sam the Human, and then I have a Twitter, which is Sam the Human Boy, with a 0 instead of the O.
All right, thanks, Sam. And Sprout, last but not least, if you'd like to go ahead, we can jump into the first topic after.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I am Sprouticus. I'm a constitutionalist conservative. You can find me at twitch.tv/Sprouticus. You can find me at twitter.com/Sprouticus. If you like my takes, feel free to go give me a follows. If you hate my takes, feel free to go give me some follows. And especially, this is the important part, right? If you really hate me and you want to stick around to hate me for longer, subscribing will help me stick around for longer. So if you really hate me, go give me a sub, and that will help me out a lot.
All right, good deal. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with topic one. Like I said, I'll allow about 2 minutes for everybody on opening statements, and then we can just jump into open dialogue from there. If it feels like it's getting unproductive or too many people are trying to talk over each other, I might jump in ask some clarifying questions, depending. But mostly I just want to allow for an open back and forth if possible. All right, so topic 1. 2 organizers of the January 6th protest, which culminated in the storming of the Capitol, have been communicating with House investigators regarding a series of dozens, they say, of meetings with members of Congress and White House staff. Their claims, along with a since-deleted live stream from Ali Alexander, who is the organizer of both Wild Protests and the leader of the Stop the Steal movement, indicate 3 things. First, that a congressman promised to organize a blanket pardon in an unrelated ongoing investigation. 2, Trump's White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was made aware of the potential of Alexander's protest to turn violent based off of a myriad of red flags listed in the article, including members of the right-wing paramilitary groups in his entourage at previous Trump rallies. 3, Congressman worked with organizers in planning the protest. So if these witnesses do end up testifying as expected, and the evidence which is currently being withheld to protect their anonymity proves sufficient, what should the consequences be for these congressmen and former White House staffers? IRI, if you'd like to go first with your opening statement.
Yeah, it was an interesting article done by Rolling Stone. I think the thing that stuck out to me was the blanket pardon thing, though I read that that was related to things that happened before the rally, but still, dangling a promise of a pardon to people to do something is a little strange. But it's also coming from Paul Gosar, Republican from Arizona, and I don't know. I don't think he's the most trustworthy of sources. He's the guy who wore body armor to the rally that day. So I'm curious to see what comes from this. As far as the question of what should happen to these people, I'm not really a big fan of overturning elections, and we've got the midterms coming up next year. But if it's proven that members of Congress were involved not only in the rally, which is fine, right? It's just a protest or rally, but in actually planning and giving people information where Congress members hide, and there's no proof of that or anything. But if that comes out, then I would be supportive of tossing some of these people. And the Speaker of the House has the right to do that. Congress can toss members if they decide to do so. So worst case scenario, people get tossed.
All right, sounds good. Ukerist, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know that I'll have a lot to say for openings. I'm excited to see where the conversation goes. I find myself in kind of a weird place with regard to the Rolling Stone article because the details are pretty scant right now. So I think what's really going to matter going forward is what we find out or what comes out in hearings and the participation of these organizers with investigators, what exactly was discussed and expected to happen at the rally. So obviously I think it's a great thing if members of Congress work with their constituents or people who support their ideas to organize events where people can rally and show their support for certain policies. That's fine. But as the article suggests, if they knew or expected that it would get violent, if there was a plan to storm the Capitol and do other things that are violent and illegal, then I think it gets really thorny really fast. So I think it's all just going to depend on what comes out of this. I'm also going to say up front, Spectre knows this, other people here know this. I'm not going to pretend to be neutral on this at all. I call myself a conservative. I don't have much love for the current Republican Party, and I absolutely hate Madison Cawthorn. I went to school with him. He's an asshole. He assaulted my friends. So yeah, I'm not anywhere close to neutral on this, and at least in terms of his participation. I think he's a dick. So as far as what should happen to them, yeah, like as I'm Really Important said, we do have a process. It doesn't get used much, but we have a process for members of Congress to be removed. They can take a vote on that. It hasn't happened much. The most prominent ones happened because of the Civil War. So, but there have been cases where there's been a pretty sure expulsion from Congress that was headed off by a resignation. So maybe they should resign, or otherwise it should maybe go to a vote if all of these things pan out, as a Rolling Stone article suggests. So we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I've always thoroughly enjoyed our talks on Madison Cawthorn. It's very, very weird to me that you went to school with him. Yeah, maybe we'll get into him a little bit tonight. That'd be fun. Anyway, Hans, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm not going to try and reach out any ground that IRI has already said. If it turns out that these leaks are true and that they testify and we get like good information that these people did this, obviously I think they should be expelled from Congress for, I would say, encouraging and waiving like immunity for actions against the government and overturning a free, like, you know, what is mostly supposedly a free and fair election. I think it's a pretty fair statement to be. I'd also like to correct a bit of leftist misinformation perpetrated by Spectre. In the article, one of them was called the organizer and the other one was called the planner. So you called them both organizers, and that is absolutely atrocious. I suggest you read your own sources. That was a fucking meme. But anyway, this is I enjoy. I'm also excited to see where this goes. I'm not going to make any strong statements because again, the Rolling Stone article has anonymous sources that are supposedly going to testify, and if that happens, obviously throw like not just the book, but like the entire fucking library at these people. And if this turns out to just be like another story, then we can go along it with business as usual and start covering other topics. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Hans. Glad to see you holding your fellow leftist accountable as always.
So
Excellent.
true.
All right. And now, Rob, if you'd like to go ahead and make an opening statement.
Sure. So I am really important says the most important thing here. There is no proof. There's no proof of anything. Hell, let's say that everything that's said in this Rolling Stone argument's real. What do these two people have to say? That there were people in Congress involved with the planning of protest about the election possibly being stolen. And? Does it even suggest that they were involved in violence, planning violence, showing people layouts of the Capitol so that they could assassinate Mike Pence or AOC? Is there anything like that claimed? No, nothing at all. Once more, we have another anonymous source article that's making bombshell claims about Republicans that we see so many people in the mainstream left eat up. Oh my goodness, just like the Trump-Russia collusion, just like all this other stuff. Let's for a second go through this and see what would have to be true for the broader implications that people are making about this article to make sense. Well, the FBI, we've already seen, said that they came to the conclusion that they didn't find that there was any strategic planning that went into violence at the January 6th rally. So if that's the case, then we have to believe that either the FBI, despite all evidence to the contrary, is in cahoots with Trump and Republicans and is covering up for them because they knew that they engaged in insurrection, or they're so incompetent that after their largest manpower investigation in history, they were unable to recover what the Rolling Stone was able to recover that showed that there actually was planning. This makes no sense whatsoever. Even if you hate Marjorie Taylor Greene or Madison Cawthorn, they're not stupid enough to have a meeting with people they barely know talking about how they are planning an insurrection or violence. It's absolute nonsense. It makes no sense whatsoever, but we can see that this is being held on as a conspiracy because the broader narrative here is the establishment is, although all political violence is bad, those that engaged in political violence on January 6th should be punished, commiserate to what other political violence we've seen recently have done. However, this is being used as an issue for the establishment, like former CIA Director John Brennan had said, to go after nationalists, to go after libertarians, to go after people that care about this country, using a new domestic war on terrorism. And so they will keep this narrative going. As Joe Biden said, it's the worst thing to happen. It's worse than 9/11. That's what many people in the Democratic Party are saying. And so they're going to keep this narrative alive. The Rolling Stone article's big bombshell was people that spoke at Stop the Steal rallies as Congress people may have talked to some people there about planning other rallies. It's nothing. It's a joke, but fine. We can talk about it.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Looking forward to the conservative infighting that we're about to see here. Should be fun. Anyway, Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief because I'm pretty much in agreement with what both Hans and IRI had said, that, you know, based off what the Rolling Stone article had said, while it's scant and isn't there, if there was more information or if the information pans out in a specific way, you know, throwing these people out of office, it seems to be the way to go. But, you know, it's not my first bat to swing.
All right. Excellent. And Sprouticus, if you want to wrap it up.
Muted.
Pro streamer.
Pro streamer moment. All right, so I'll go
Still
and wrap
muted.
this up. No, I'm not.
I can't hear you.
I can hear him.
Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
gaslighting you. Keep going.
Oh my
Anyways.
God.
I'm sorry.
Censorship.
I'm sleepy. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm not trying. I was trying to gaslight you.
right-wing censorship, okay? Anyways, so there's no actual credible evidence that this has happened yet. There is secondhand accounts that it may have happened. The idea that they put may have is extremely concerning as to, okay, so the may have happened. Okay, so I also may have talked to President Donald Trump. What's the odds of me actually talking to President Donald Trump? Not likely. And so with that being said, I think this is just a bunch of nothing. I think it's just a bunch of nothing. I think it's just to keep the narrative around. This narrative is just there because it's getting closer to 2022, and they're trying to make sure that Biden doesn't receive the fall of how he has carried this nation, and he's done absolutely awful job of it. Job numbers have gone down. Well, job numbers have gone up, not to the number that was expected. He did a terrible job pointing out Afghanistan. These are the things they're trying to distract from, and they're trying to do it by bringing up January 6th, which is done and over with.
All right. So we'll go ahead and jump into open discussion. Just to remind everybody, the last part of the question was, if the witnesses end up testifying as expected and the evidence which is being withheld to protect their anonymity proves sufficient, what should the consequences be for these congressmen? So we can talk about the legitimacy of the article if we want to go into that direction. But really, I'm just curious, like if we can prove that they promised the blanket pardon for a separate investigation. If Trump's White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was in fact made aware of the potential of violence from Ali Alexander due to the myriad of red flags listed in the article, and congressmen did work with organizers in planning the protest, should there even be consequences for that? What would those consequences be? Expulsion, nothing, prison? Where do we go from there? But yeah, I'll just go ahead and open it up, and we can get started.
I have a question for Rob and maybe Sprouticus. I don't know. So what has been most interesting for me, because I kind of had a similar reaction to you when I saw the Rolling Stone headline. I was like, ooh, this is going to be big. And I read it and I was like, this isn't as much as I thought it was going to be based on how people were talking about it. But then I've been keeping an eye, particularly again on Madison Cawthorn, because I have an unhealthy obsession with him. His response, or his office's response to this, right? So his new communications director, Luke Ball, who by the way worked for Matt Gaetz before he moved to Cawthorn's office, his public statement that was given to the Asheville Citizen-Times says these anonymous accusations are complete garbage. Neither the congressman nor his staff had advanced knowledge of what transpired at the Capitol on January 6th or participated in any alleged planning process. So if what you're saying is true, that so what? If all of this is true, it doesn't matter because all they did was help plan a protest. I'm wondering why he would be so emphatic about having zero knowledge about any planning process. Because it seems like, to me, if it just comes out that, oh no, he did participate in planning the protest, that's not a big deal unless there's more behind it. Why deny it in this way if it just doesn't matter if he did help plan the January 6th protest that led to violence?
Well, there's two reasons to deny it. The first would be that he didn't do it. So if it's the truth that he's denying it, that would be a reason to deny it. The other reason could be because we have seen through the treatment of the people that were at the Capitol on January 6th, there are basically three groups of people that were there. There were people that engaged in violence, a very small percentage that engaged in violence with the police. Strangely enough, the FBI is not releasing the majority of that footage to see exactly what happened, but fair enough. Anyone engaging in political violence and fighting with police should face some consequences. That should be the case regardless if you're a right-wing protester, left-wing protester, whatever. The second group of people were people that entered the Capitol, very similar to how people entered the Capitol under the Kavanaugh situation. The people that entered under Kavanaugh were given a slap on the wrist and some small fines. People that entered under this January 6th that weren't committing any violence, that were following the velvet ropes, that we now see videos that the police were waving them in, allowing in. Many of them are facing their lives being ruined, spending time in solitary confinement, etc. The third group of people were people that didn't even enter the Capitol or engage in any violence. Now, the reason I bring up these three groups of people is because all three groups of these people have been smeared as insurrectionists. The FBI has been putting pictures up of blue-haired grandmas and other people. People have been ratting out friends and neighbors because anyone who went to the January 6th protest is being tainted as a potential terrorist and insurrectionist. So it could be that someone like Madison Cawthorn says, well, I know that if I admit that I talked to some of the people that were involved on the January 6th protest, not inciting an insurrection or a riot or anything like that, that I will be smeared by an unfair media, an unfair Democratic Party as somehow being involved in some insurrection. So maybe, just like we know Kavanaugh most likely lied about never blacking out drunk, the reason he lied about that was because so many people on the left said, aha, if you blacked out, that proves you raped someone. So maybe Madison Cawthorn's just saying, no, I didn't have any communication with these people whatsoever because he's afraid that the media will, as he's correct in predicting, smear him as an insurrectionist.
Wait, Rob, you said that
So-
people were arrested in the same way at the Kavanaugh hearing as on January 6th. I mean, you're talking about people that got tickets and stood in line and then had outbursts in the back of the room. Is that what you're talking about, or is there something I'm missing here?
No, that's not what happened. What happened was that police tried to keep people out of the Hart Building of the Capitol, and yet those people overwhelmed the police and rushed into the Hart Building. They even then proceeded to chase sitting senators into elevators, harassing them to change their vote. And it was done to stop the democratic process of confirming Brett Kavanaugh. Both situations involved people barging past police to break into the Capitol. They were given a slap on the wrist. The people that did so, even in a nonviolent way, January 6th, many of them are in solitary confinement and have spent months in prison and have their lives ruined.
And to answer what Ukerist said, and I'm gonna reread the statement. Is the statement that was given out by Madison's PR rep, essentially, is these anonymous accusations are complete garbage. Neither the congressman nor his staff had advanced knowledge of what transpired at the Capitol on January 6th or participated in any alleged planning process. And what this tells me, right, if we go this step by step, is that the accusations are garbage. The congressman nor his staff had any knowledge that there was going to be an attack on January 6th and did not participate in any alleged planning process. The alleged planning process that's alleged right now is that he helped plan the attack on the Capitol. Nothing in this statement says that he did not help plan a protest. Nothing in this statement did not say that he was a part of that protest. This statement is just outright denying that he had any part in the attack on January 6th.
My question to the
I have one question before. Sorry, Rob. It's
no
like, so you said that there's the reason why he say like might lie because like he's been treated so badly. I feel like in this case the truth could be an easy defense in the same way that I think like all the lefties here, like IRI and Sam and I, would say, oh hey, like if it turns out this was like a bullshit story, I'd be totally fine. Like, and I would obviously like encourage that, like say the Rolling Stone like to publish a retraction, say that was like a bullshit story. I can't believe that you ran with that, like with the sources that you had. I feel like once we start getting to the point where we say, oh, hey, it's better to lie under oath because like the media might treat me unfairly, then I feel like at that point, like we have devolved so much that like it's no longer even possible to have what would be like a quote unquote good faith like conversation in our politics. Because you just say like there's like a legitimate reason why you'd lie under oath because like you're like afraid of say the media treating you in bad faith. I'd say in this case, like the truth is like the best defense of that. I would not like commit perjury because of a potentially like biased media.
But first off, he didn't lie under oath. That was a statement he gave to the press. Second, we have no proof that that is a lie. And I'm not saying that lying's good. I agree with you 100%. I think that this is something you see Republicans do a lot, conservatives especially do a lot, where they're afraid of being called racist. They're afraid of the bad faith media that is, and Democrats that are out there to smear them in any way possible. So they end up lying about little things instead of just telling the truth. For example, you could have potentially seen Republicans that lied about ever having dinner with Russians. Now, even if turns out they did have dinner with Russians and nothing was discussed, they knew that if they ever admitted to being in a room with a Russian, that the media would go after them as Russia collusion they're working with. That doesn't mean they should lie. I agree with you 100%. But let's not get it twisted. We don't know that he's lying, and we also don't. This wasn't under oath. If he lies under oath, I agree with you. That's a bigger deal. That would be similar to, for example, James Comey, Clapper, McCabe, Rosenstein, Hillary Clinton, Mills, Abedin, all who lied under oath and weren't punished whatsoever. It would be more similar to that, which of course we'd see the double standard from the FBI and whatever. But again, my question just real quick, before we even move on with this discussion, what is it, particularly the people on the left, what is it that you think this Rolling Stone article is accusing? Like, if everything they say is true, what is that scenario? The way I read it, it was just that there were people that were Republicans like Cathorn and Marjorie Taylor Greene that talked with people in the Stop the Steal movement and planned rallies. That's different than planning a riot. So even if that's all true, what's the implication here?
Right, Rob. So, Rob, you're 100% correct that if they just talk to them about potentially planning rallies on the day, I don't see that like as an actual issue. But it seems like there were stronger statements in the article than just that. That if it was just saying, "Oh, hey, we're going to have rallies about this, we're going to like talk about this," obviously, I think the like all the like the steal stuff is like complete like bullshit and everything like that. I think they should still like potentially be allowed to like say that, right? Like given like free speech laws and everything about that. But if it can be like proven that people, whether it's Mark Meadows or like any say like staffer like any staffer of a congressperson or any congressperson says, hey, if things get like rowdy, you need like blanket pardons, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, then I think we could probably all agree that like that's like a level of unacceptability that we would like. I would hope everyone on the panel would say, hey, this is like literally unacceptable, and you had some level of collusion about like say pre-knowledge of violence and like a presupposition of like we're going to give you like legal like immunity from the actions you're going to take. I don't think like having as a hopefully a good faith left-wing actor, right, like in this space, I could probably tell you if it just so happened that they were saying, oh, we're going to appear at a Stop the Steal rally on the 6th, and they like had no like actual inkling of like what was going to potentially happen, then I would say, hey, you're still dumb as shit for your politics, but I'm not going to say like, oh, you should be in prison. But like that's an entirely different like thing than like what might be the case. And again, I don't think anyone here has made a particularly strong statement about say like that it's 100% true. It's just that if it is true, that needs to come to light, that needs to happen in a congressional hearing, and if that happens to be true, then at that point throw them out of Congress. So
okay,
yeah.
so to counter that, and this is to all the leftists, so IRI, Hans, Sam the Human. So if this turns out to be just objectionably false, these people clearly made this story up to try and get attention, to try whatever they could to get the attention off of them in this investigation. This story is 100% bullshit. What should happen to the people that came up with this story and were trying to use this story to go after congressmen that had no part in this?
I'm totally fine with
absolutely
it.
I don't know
nothing.
about you, but I live in the United States where we have a freedom of press. And
Yeah.
No, not the freedom of press. The Rolling Stones should be allowed to publish it, right?
Okay.
And they can redact it. But these sources, the ones that are going to testify,
they're committing, if they're doing it under oath, they should be charged with perjury, just like anybody
Yeah,
else.
absolutely. Like if like those sources like lie under oath and it turns like that was bullshit, then yeah, throw the book at them in the same that you throw the book at say like a congressman who like lied about like having no interaction like with an entity, right? Like in the same way, like I would say the responsibility of the news outlet is that they would have to immediately publish a retraction. I would hope that those journalists get like publicly condemned for going forward with the story without like doing their due diligence in terms of like sourcing. And I assume that would like hopefully affect their careers long term. But I would like again, like I think Sam said it better than me, like in terms of like freedom of the press, like in terms of like if we can't run stories say without like 100% accuracy, then
No.
I would say a lot of stuff like can't be run. And if we want to do that, that's fine. But then we're talking about a much more stringent like thing. And how do we say like what is even like 100% like true?
No, I don't care. I don't care about the Rolling Stones. Of course, the freedom of the press, but perjury is a rare crime to be charged with. There's not very many charges of perjury. It's very rare that someone be charged with perjury, even if they lie under oath. As shown that Fauci is still not charged with perjury, even though he lied under oath in the investigation into the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He still has not been charged with perjury.
Ridiculous.
So people are getting away with lying under oath and not being charged with perjury. So I'm just glad to hear that there's going to be some kind of repercussion for lying to Congress, or some wanted repercussion of lying to Congress, when there hasn't been that prior.
Okay, and
All right,
even
that was
I know
I go
IRI
back.
has something to say, but I want what you're asking us is to make promises on how Congress will act. We're on Twitch. This is a Twitch panel. We all have opinions. We may be knowledgeable, but none of us can make you that promise.
I'm pretty sure I said desire. I'm pretty sure I said there was a want.
Demanding us to tell you exactly what would happen to these people is absurd. We're telling
I'm pretty.
you what we believe should happen.
I asked what.
I told you what I want. I would want those sources like if they lied under oath to be charged for perjury.
And I'm saying that I'm glad that you guys want that. It just seems to be that there wasn't that want prior when other people have lied before Congress, i.e., Dr. Fauci. So I'm just glad that the.
Well, this is just the one about it.
That's not a critique.
This is not.
Oh, hold on. Hey, I'm talking, and I have priority speaker on, so nobody can hear you. Awesome. IRI, you probably know a little bit more about the Fauci situation than most. You watch C-SPAN all day, so do you have a response to that in particular, or what was it that you were wanting to say?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what Sprout's talking about, but I think he's talking about implying that Fauci said he wasn't involved in the gain of function research or something. I mean, these guys are acting like Fauci personally was involved in some sort of weaponizing of the virus in this Chinese Wuhan lab. It's ridiculous. Why would Fauci lie under oath? This is a public servant who's dedicated his whole life to just helping people. He's a total scapegoat by these guys. It's ridiculous. But can I say something back to Rob about the heart building thing? I want to go back. I'm looking into this, Rob. I never heard of this, and I have to say I'm impressed. Not impressed, but I'm thrilled to hear some nuance about the FBI, because you had mentioned that the FBI basically cleared the event on January 6th of any pre-planning or anything. But I usually don't hear that. I usually hear that the FBI is kind of corrupt and maybe even set up the whole thing. So I appreciate the nuance there, that the FBI actually can do some good. But looking at the heart building event, it looks like 300-400 people marched, and then they walked into the atrium and they had signs that said love over war, and a couple of women cried to Jeff Flake in an elevator. I mean, are you really comparing this to hand-to-hand combat for hours by the January 6th insurrectionists where 3 cops were killed? I mean, are you kidding me?
First off, you're blatantly lying that 3 cops were killed. The only person that was killed there that day, was killed by the actions of another person, was a Trump supporter by the name of Ashley Babbitt. There was a lie that was put through the press by the Democrats.
Did anyone die after from injuries?
Right.
From the event?
No one died. No,
trampled a woman.
Right. I understand. I understand the talking points of the mainstream media. No, Officer Brian Sicknick was the officer that we were told by the mainstream media that had his head beat in by a fire extinguisher and later died of injuries of that. That did not occur. 4 Trump supporters died, most of which were from conditions like strokes or from heart attacks that occurred there. No evidence that they were maliciously beaten, attacked, or anything else by any other people at the rally. Officer Brian Sicknick, although we were told, was killed due to injuries he suffered there. The coroner was forced to admit that no, that was not the case. They had no evidence that he suffered any injuries there. They couldn't even find video evidence that he inhaled tear gas. What he ended up dying of was a stroke. Now, the narrative was pushed that he died as a result of his injuries there. That wasn't true. Several other officers that were there later committed suicide. There is no evidence that the actions of the people January 6th led to that. Now, if you listen to me, I talked about how there were 3 separate groups of people on January 6th. There were people that were engaged in violence with the police. Absolutely, those people should be charged. We should have a single standard for doing so. It's nice to see people on the left that are finally concerned about clashes with police when they were silent about the riots that occurred almost on a nightly basis from Black Lives Matter and Antifa that led to conflicts with the police, with thousands of police officers injured over the summer. But now all of a sudden you care about that. Fine, those people should go to jail, no problem. I'm talking about the people that peacefully entered the Capitol, just like people that basically peacefully entered the Capitol under the Kavanaugh scenario. We treated them vastly different, didn't we? Both of them, they didn't have tickets to be in the gallery, like you said. They broke into the building.
Oh, come on, Rob.
Right,
They
I
broke
understand.
past barricades of cops.
All right.
They broke past barricades of cops. It's not the same as walking into the building. Are you kidding me?
Have you seen
this
the
is hand-to-hand combat for hours,
No,
getting past barricades.
not-
And
that's
you
not-
are saying we have no footage. You're saying we definitively don't know if he was killed by the crowd. We don't know that.
Yes, we do.
He
The
could have had a
coroner
stroke
said.
because he said we couldn't tell for sure. But that doesn't mean we'd know for sure either.
Oh, cool. Well, then I guess
do you
I
think-
could say
do you
the
think a
same
police
thing.
officer-
Sure.
do you
Did
think a
anyone?
police
Let me ask you
officer-
this. Let me ask you this. Did anyone die after the Kavanaugh hearings? Do you know? If someone had a stroke 3
I
days
know.
after the Kavanaugh hearings, would you say,
Well,
well, then we need to charge
nope.
everyone that entered the building under Kavanaugh because they
I
could have
don't-
caused that
I don't
stroke?
remember. I don't remember reading about a police officer collapsing when he returned to his
Why would
office
they?
after engaging in hand-to-hand combat
Show
during
me
the
that
heart
Sicknick
incident.
engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Show me.
I mean, how much footage do you need? I'm sure it's out
Well,
there.
why did the coroner say that they didn't have any proof of it then? Now, getting back to Han's question, because I think this is a question that no one answered, that's a legitimate question, which is the evidence of the pardon, and that seems to speak to something more. Well, a pardon itself doesn't speak to pardoning violence. Like, for example, you could theoretically say, let's
Blanket
say,
pardon does.
well, hear me out. You could theoretically have someone like Maxine Waters say, there's going to be, after 2016, there are going to be a lot of people that show up to the Capitol that are furious about the election of Donald Trump. And maybe Maxine Waters thought, like Hillary was saying, that the election was stolen by Russians. Maybe that's what she thought. So maybe she talked to people and said, you still have the right to go to the Capitol and protest. You even have the right to be on those stairs and have your voice heard. And if you get arrested or something, don't worry. We'll ensure that you get pardoned. Because free speech is important, and we're worried that a corrupt system led by Donald Donald Trump will arrest you for exercising your free speech. Gozer could have felt the same way. You have the right to be there to speak. You have the right to be on Capitol grounds. And if you get arrested for peacefully exercising your right to free speech, we'll ensure that you get pardoned and don't face any time. If the conversation of the pardon was, you should engage in violence, and if you do that, I will pardon you, that's a completely different situation. Again, we have no evidence that's what was suggested.
Okay, but so again, I just want to lock this down in particular. If it comes out that there is evidence, like I say, like a testimony under oath, that this happened, and it's not determined that they're committing perjury, that this did happen, and they're saying, hey, there's a blanket pardon in case shit gets wild and people get hurt. Would you then be comfortable saying that is super different? I'm already saying that a blanket, do you have a specific quote from Maxine about a blanket pardon for people who come and protest in DC under the Trump administration? Because I would love to see that.
No. I'm talking hypothetical, because I think everyone here's in good
okay. So it's hypothetical. So what I'm asking then is we're engaging good faith. So it's but if we can prove this, and again, I don't think anyone here is making a super the 100% strong statement, this is what 100% happened. But if it did, and it is proven, at that point you're okay. I don't think you have ever, or Sprout for that matter, answered this question. What would you, if all of the worst case scenario of this article is true, and that we have a half a dozen Republican Congress people who actively either aided and abetted or promised pardons for potential extrajudicial violence committed by protesters, what would your desired punishment for those people be?
Well, two things, real quick. One, that's not what the article says. You can have a discussion of real quick.
He's just asking you.
I will get to that. I will get to that.
Change the question.
I will get to that. So the first part is, if everything in this article, the worst case ends up being true. The article doesn't say that. Just mentioning a blanket pardon is not the same as if saying, "Oh, you guys are going to go engage in violence, but that's okay. I'll pardon it." Now, if that, so the article's not saying that, but if that ends up being the truth, absolutely, any congressperson that spoke to any sort of violence and encouraged their constituents to engage in any sort of violence shouldn't just be removed from office, they should actually face criminal charges. Period. End of story. What I'm saying is, this article doesn't even suggest that. And can I get you all to agree that if the left would recommend engaging in violence or rushing people in restaurants and things like that, you all would be for kicking those people out of Congress and locking them up as well, correct?
When you say rushing people at restaurants, are you suggesting, say, screaming at somebody in a restaurant? I don't like.
So what about Hans? Well, I'm gonna make this really clear, because I stand side by side with what Rob said. I think they should receive criminal charges, along with Maxine Waters, who said if Trump or any of his administration walks into your restaurant, you get up in their face, you tell them they're not allowed there, you push them out, you do this, you do that. I can pull up the exact quote if you want me to, but that's what's being referred to,
and she said push.
Which was obvious. Like I said, I can pull up the exact. I'm sure I can pull up the exact statement. Give me 1 second.
I think there's a difference between a meal at a restaurant and stopping or delaying the peaceful transfer of power by confirming the Electoral College votes. I mean, let's be real here.
No, there's not. What's the difference? The difference is this. One is suggesting that
you
you should
use...
Ready? You should use fear and intimidation against Congress people when they're out with their family. The other suggesting that you go and you protest at a political event.
Fear and intimidation for what?
Because you don't like their politics. That's what Maxine Waters was saying.
And you're comparing that to the peaceful transfer of power? Are you kidding me?
So you'll admit then, real quick, under the Kavanaugh, they sought to stop the peaceful transition of power, correct?
What do you mean the peaceful transition of power at the Kavanaugh hearing?
Right.
What peaceful transition of power?
Well, the electoral process that allowed to the governing that we have, that the process for a Supreme Court nominee was trying to be stopped because they did not want a Supreme Court justice that they didn't agree with politically.
They didn't storm Congress in session and try to stop the vote. They
stormed the confirmation.
They protested a hearing.
They stormed the confirmation.
There was it's effectively a fancy interview process to determine whether, it doesn't actually determine anything because everybody already knew how they were
that's
voting.
Not what they stormed. They stormed the confirmation.
It wasn't even the vote.
They stormed the
It wasn't
confirmation.
even the vote.
And again,
Okay,
I'll just say real quick,
all right,
you see this constantly from people on the left, and I guess at least one person on the right, that want to make excuses for when their side engages in violence, intimidation, and harassment. It's okay when their side does it because the nuance was different, but when your side does it, oh, you can't compare the two. It's just abject nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
So
I'm not trying to excuse anything.
Okay, hold on. Too
You
many.
can't compare the two, though. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just too many people going at once. So, like, Sprout, I know that you're very wanting to get the Maxine Waters like evidence that you have out there for Hans right now, but yeah, I think the disconnect here is that IRI is basically saying that he considers it more serious because we're literally talking about the peaceful transition of power for the president from his perspective, and Rob is saying it shouldn't matter because it should just be consistent down the line, which you both have different value systems there. I don't know if we're going to be able to really hash that out. Anyway,
Try to distinguish slightly between the two things, and in one, like, I don't know.
Can we take a look? Can we take a look at what's being talked about real quick? Can I get this statement out like I said I would real quick so we can determine
Yeah,
what's
just-
being talked about from the left?
I would appreciate
Just-
that, Sprout. And
just
I will
let
crit-
Sprout-
and I will criticize her accordingly. I'd like to
Yeah.
respond after he finishes, to be clear.
All right. So the statement that was made by Maxine Waters was, let's make sure we show up whenever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out, you create a crowd, you push back on them, you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. We've got to get the children connected to their parents. We don't know what damage has been done to these children. All we know is they're in cages, they're in prisons, they're in jails. I don't care what they call it. That's where they are. Mr. President, we will see you every day, every hour of the day, everywhere. That we are to let you know you cannot get away with this. And then the people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you.
Okay, right. So hold on, Hans. Just there's a lot of people going right now. Reminder, everybody. First of all, I have priority speaker on when I'm talking. The only people that can hear you is your own chat. So just don't talk while I'm talking. So I'd like a response from Hans, and then we can go to Ukerist, who wanted to draw a distinction between these two things. So go ahead, Hans.
Okay, so the most damaging thing in that statement, I would say, is the push back on them, right? If we're going to interpret that as physically pushing, then I would say virtually every Trump speech where he includes the word fight, striking at lefty so Rob gets happy. Every time Bernie Sanders says we need to fight for a $15 minimum wage. Every time someone uses the word, if we want to take it in the most literal way possible, if someone says push, it means we're going to shove somebody to the ground. If we say we're going to fight for a policy, it means we're going to go in there with spears and nunchucks and shit, then yeah, I would say that's bad. I would say that language, if we want to say that was a bad language, I would absolutely agree with you. But again, if we're going to pretend that someone saying push back on somebody in a restaurant is equivalent,
That's not.
Okay, so I'm telling you,
That's not the most damning.
Okay, what's another damning thing? Because from what I've heard, that's the worst part. I'm waiting for the other part. Sorry, keep
They're
going.
going to absolutely harass them until they decide until they decide they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but harassment is illegal federally. So she's literally pushing people to do an illegal action.
Great, and then she should not have said that, and I'd be fine with condemning her for that and having some kind of issue, what's it called? Some kind of
She should be removed
legal
from office, right?
consequences.
That's what you said would be the bare minimum.
If we're removing people from office for saying harass, then I would have liked to remove Trump for saying fight, because the president inciting physical violence is probably, I think that's a law, right? Incitement to violence is a really big fucking
Harass
thing.
is not the same as fight. Harass is a very.
I don't know. Fight means punching somebody. If I'm fighting somebody,
harass is not used politically.
Assault is illegal.
Harass is not used politically, right? No one has a political speech where I'm going to harass that person, right? That's not used politically. Fight is used by politicians everywhere. Every politician uses the word fight, and it's almost always seen to be metaphorically.
What are the acceptable aggressive words that we're allowed to say?
But when she says they're going to absolutely harass them until they decide they're going to tell the president, she is clearly calling on her supporters to commit an illegal action against the cabinet of the president of the United States until they decide that they're going to resign their office.
Okay, so we're talking about harass. Do you feel like people like being protested? Do you feel like a politician enjoys being protested?
Protesting is not harassing.
Could could someone say that they're being not to bring up other drama right now, but there's really a broad spectrum of what people consider harassment, either on this platform or in politics. So my
care what
question
people
is,
confuse.
so if people are at a location where you work and they're saying you have bad policies, your policies make people homeless and make children like starve and make people die, and we're gonna keep telling you what a bad fucking person you are, and that person really doesn't want to hear it, and they say consider that harassment. At that point, does that become illegal? At what point, I would completely agree with you that using that word is absolutely atrocious and people like actually harass people, then yes. But what I would ask is, like, as a public elected official, are people not allowed to protest you? Are people not allowed to go to town halls and say that you're a fucking monster for whatever policy you support?
No, they're allowed to protest. They're not allowed to harass. There's a legal definition that comes with harassment.
Okay, cool. So then, like, if they're just bothering somebody, say a Republican who's explicitly anti-gay is at a gay bar for whatever reason, right? Like, they're vibing, they needed a drink, they're in the community, and their policy is explicitly anti-LGBTQ, right? And people in that bar are like, yo, motherfucker, you're trying to, like, get rid of marriage rights from me. You're a fucking piece of shit. And everyone's just sitting around this person screaming at them, hey, you're a fucking piece of shit. You need to get out of the fucking bar. I think you're fucking terrible. Your policies actively, like, you know, are hurting us in our population. Is that allowed?
Listen, this whole conversation is going off the rail. Here's real quick. Everyone knows
Wait, okay.
If I can, real quick, then you could respond to me. Maxine Waters is clearly saying, don't even, in the context of this, we saw people in Trump's cabinet that were being chased out of restaurants by angry mobs. That's what was happening. She's clearly saying that's a good thing. Just like she said during the George Floyd trial, that if she didn't get the results she wanted, that they needed to up the intensity. What was the intensity? Well, there were nightly riots going on at Minneapolis. Maxine Waters says this shit all the time. We know what she's saying. We all know it. And the left is cool with it. They say, then you're saying, but if it's true, the conservatives said the worst things. What worst things? Well, we don't know. If they offered blanket immunity, I gave a scenario where offering immunity would be fine if they didn't specifically encourage violence. So the difference that we're talking about, the key difference is, one, we have a Democrat politician that literally did the type of things that you all said would be grounds from being removed from office. But as soon as we bring it up, you're like, well, but you're talking about hypotheticals. If Republicans said that you should go engage in violence, what should happen to them? Anyone suggest engaging in this sort of violence and intimidation?
No, guys, Hans, hold on. So we're almost out of time on this topic, so I do want to make sure that we get to what we said we were.
We can make the last.
Are you? If you're willing to stay up, we can extend it about 30 minutes.
I fucking can't. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So I want to allow Ukerist, about 10 minutes ago, said that he could draw a distinction. So I'd like to let our conservative friend try to tell us what the difference is between these two incidents, and then we can go to Sam, who seems like he would like to say something.
So I don't necessarily want to draw a distinction between the Maxine Waters thing and the January 6th thing, because I agree. I think the Maxine Waters thing is bad. I'm a shitbag who kind of believes in some form of civility politics. Like, you probably shouldn't harass people. It's probably a bad idea. Don't do that. I think she shouldn't have said that. And to the extent that people were doing illegal harassment, they should be charged with doing an illegal harassment. I wanted to talk about the Kavanaugh hearings in relation to the January 6th stuff, because what I'm looking at right now is, it says, over 200 people actually did get arrested in relation to the Kavanaugh hearings. Most of them weren't doing egregious stuff. They were doing what normal protesters do in the Capitol, which is blocking up halls, yelling at people in the hallways, right? One person in particular was in the hearing, yelled out, brought a sign, like jumped over seats, was like really disruptive, and he actually got charged with similar things to what the January 6th people got charged with disruption of Congress, right? Like, that's a thing that you can get charged with, and he got charged with it. So people did get arrested and charged with whatever they did. I want to distinguish that incident with people literally breaking windows and pulling down barricades and stealing riot shields, and the Capitol Police having to build barricades inside the building to stop them from getting to Congress in session, and having to evacuate both journalists and Congress people on the floor trying to vote on a transition of power. Yeah, I think those are very different things, because there was, like, in the Kavanaugh hearings, there was no apparent threat of violence. Nobody's breaking windows. There was no reports of shots fired, anything like that. No cops were actually, the one guy got charged with resisting arrest. A couple of people did, right? But I think we can strongly distinguish between window breaking, barricade pulling, cops literally having to evacuate Congress, and arresting people who are standing around in hallways. I think those are very different things. But the point of this conversation is not to just litigate January 6th, right? We're not here to just say, who did exactly what bad things. It's this Rolling Stone article which says, okay, some people helped plan. What seems to be like the turning point for me, or like the real key here, is, did any of these people who are accused of helping plan the demonstration or protest know that there was an active plan not just to walk to the Capitol, but to storm the Capitol? And if so, then that introduces a new layer of responsibility and potential consequences.
Okay,
So
real
that
quick-
seems like the main topic.
Real quick, I'll get to your first point second. Secondly, just on that last point, it seems to me, does anyone disagree with this? That both of the two whistleblowers, the anonymous whistleblowers or the anonymous people that this article, both of them seem to say we were involved in the planning of this with people in Congress. Everyone agree with that?
At least,
Yeah, right.
At least the,
I don't even know if I go that far. Yeah, I don't
Okay,
know.
real
Sounds like
quick,
they're involved
but-
in planning the protest.
Sure. Do you also agree that those people seem to be appalled that violence occurred?
Yeah, they seem to say that at somewhere along the way, Trump and other people made a decision to make this about more than just the protest, and that's where they drew a line. And they seem to think that that was a conscious decision that was communicated and planned.
Okay,
And
I
just
don't
wanna
read that.
clarify-
I don't read that anywhere.
on,
Please show me
Rob.
where they seem to imply that Trump
So-
knew that violence
Right
was
at the
going to
end.
occur.
Rob,
What's it say?
so what it says is that they express concerns about Ali Alexander's involvement due to the fact that he has in the past been seen with an entourage of far-right paramilitary grouped members at Trump rallies. And those concerns that they expressed to these Congress people were ignored.
Okay, so
So that's
and what? So that would be like me saying, "Well, I've seen many people in Black Lives Matter that have engaged in violence. Many leaders of Black Lives Matter. So I was concerned that they were involved in setting up a rally in New York City, and that members of their group were talking to Democratic politicians. This is nonsense. The article doesn't literally what this article says is there were two people that were involved in setting up setting up protest with Congress people, and they were upset that violence occurred. So that would imply that these two people that were helping set up weren't talking to Marjorie Taylor Greene or Madison Cawthorn about, "Ooh, let's have violence." They just said, "Hey, the one guy that's going to be there is kind of a shithead. I mean, we have concerns about him, and the best we have is that you had Congress people who are like, we're not really taking that seriously." Okay, let's remember, the only politician that we have on record that actually wanted increased security there in the form of the National Guard was Donald Trump. It was two Democrat politicians, the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, and the sergeant-at-arms under Nancy Pelosi, that both refused to have the increased security there. So the only person that took the fact that there could be violence seriously,
Come
it
on,
seems
Rob.
is that not true?
That's not true. They alerted Pelosi in a letter to what they're doing. She's not in charge of security there. Are you kidding
the
me?
sergeant-at-arms
This has been
answer to?
disproven.
Who's the sergeant-at-arms answer to?
The sergeant at arms is appointed. They wrote a letter letting her know what they were going to. That's why he got fired, because he screwed up.
Okay, nonetheless,
Wait. This
And Mitch McConnell
isn't
is just as much responsible.
And this isn't
He's in
particularly
charge of the Senate
relevant.
side.
So if Trump wanted, say, the National Guard there, that doesn't mean that it's impossible for the Congress people to have been aiding or abetting X. I don't know what kind of non sequitur this is here. I don't that doesn't in any way bother us. You keep bringing back to other things or other random instances or lots of whataboutisms about
That's
Democrats
what
saying.
but that's
all right.
exactly what.
Hold on, guys.
But we're specifically talking about the potential ramifications of this particular story and how it changes the events of the day if it ends up being true. I know you have the laundry list because this is something that y'all fantasize about all the time. But most of us I just moved back to this for after a couple months. I haven't read the story in a long time. So if this changes things in January 6th, then I think we all should understand the potential ramifications of what those changes could entail. And I don't think anybody here, left or right, has come out and said this is 100% true. We're just talking through essentially a funny hypothetical about how this changes the events of the day if it's been proven and guaranteed that sitting members of Congress that were in some way related to this incident. And again, so only one member of Congress wrote back to the writers of the article. The rest refused to comment. I would love to see their comments and see what they said about any relationship to either the planner or the organizer, and see how far that goes. And I would love these two sources to stand trial, right? Or not stand trial, sorry, stand in front of everybody and explain their side. If they commit perjury, we've all agreed, throw the book at them. And if it's not perjury, then this is a critical new information as to what happened during the events of January 6th. And I don't know why we do all these random whatabouts, Trump did the National Guard, blah, so we can't, there's no potential collusion. It just feels like a bunch of random shit that you're throwing and hoping something sticks, but I just don't understand.
So I'll respond to this. So
Okay,
what you can see
hold
is
on, just Rob, 1 second. So I just want to clarify from the article here, like what we're talking about is these two organizers say that they expressed concern to Mark Meadows, who is Trump's chief of staff, right? That there would be that there might be a potential for things to get out of hand with Ali Alexander not being there. They were concerned about some guy being there that's been seen with these things. He was the organizer of the Stop the Steal rallies all over the country. He was also the organizer of the Wild protest, which was also in D.C. at the time. So these protests kind of merged there. So they were saying, we don't think that you should be working with this guy because we believe that he could lead to a potential for things to get out of hand. Now, Rob, if you'd like to respond to Hans with whatever you're saying, and then Sam's been trying to get a word in, so if we could all let him.
Hans literally said everything I was going to say. I was
good. Then
to
I
say
can
that they were
dismiss
analogizing.
Good. It'll be easy to dismiss them both. Then no problem. So first off, Hans talks about me talking about hypotheticals and then gives away the game. This is just a hypothetical. We're talking about what the article says. The article
We've
does not make
literally been talking about this since the beginning, dude.
Please, I let you speak.
No one here made that strong statement.
I let you speak, please.
Okay,
So
and now
we've
you're
been-
immediately mischaracterizing me. Like, okay, I'm not
I
going to let that fucking
I
stand.
understand the impetus to talk over me because you can't handle that what I'm saying proves how nonsensical what you're saying is. So I
You
get that.
under...
Again, so
I'll let you finish. I'll mute myself. I want you to answer one question, all right?
Sure.
No, I want to ask one question, then I'll mute myself, right? So you heard correct when I and everyone else here said that we're not 100% sure on this, and this is literally a hypothetical that might change things after, like, if this investigation continues. You heard that part, right?
You muting yourself now? Then I'll respond.
No, I want you to say yes or no first.
Yes, I heard that. Now you muting yourself?
Thank you, and I'll continue to lie, you dumb motherfucker.
There you go. Hans, maybe you should exercise your mind more than your body because you're not that intellectually superior that you think you are. Now, what they're saying is they're talking about this hypothetical, right? That, well, what if a bunch of Congress people were like, yes, go engage in violence, kill Mike Pence and get AOC. Here's the blueprints for the Capitol. What if they said that? Now, what they say is they want to talk about the Rolling Stone article. Okay, that's what I've been talking about the entire time. Where does the Rolling Stone article ever even make the allegation that any sitting member of Congress spoke about encouraging or belittling or allowing violence to occur? Where does it say that anywhere? It doesn't. It doesn't say there one place. But what the left wants to do is say, oh, but what if they did? Hypothetically, what if they did? Fine, we could talk about that. When I got to, okay, what specifically are you talking about? What I had Spectre and others say is, well, here's what we're talking about. Mark Meadows, who was the White House chief of staff, was made aware by these two organizers that this one dude could be a bad dude. Well, Mark Meadows was working directly with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the only person who took security there seriously. So for this conspiracy to be true, not only did the FBI have to intentionally cover up, they had to intentionally cover up because they came out and said there was no planning like this. So now the FBI intentionally covered it up. But also Donald Trump, who was secretly encouraging the violence from this guy, was the only person trying to set up the National Guard to prevent the violence from occurring. So it's not a whataboutism hypothetical I'm talking about. They want to engage in this fantasy. One, they want to believe everything this article says and say, that proves something, which they're correctly admitting, well, we don't know that it's proven that this will be true. But then they go further than I'm operating in. My first question to everyone here was, okay, what exactly are you saying this article says? Because the bombshell in this article is, the bombshell in this argument is quite literally, I'll finish real quick. Real quick, the bombshell in this article is quite literally some people that were Congress people that were each actually speaking at Stop the Steal rallies talk to people involved with Stop the Steal. That's it. That's the big bombshell that we have. And Mark Meadows was warned that one of these guys could be dangerous. And as a result, Donald Trump suggested having National Guard people there. That's it. That's the bombshell.
Okay, I do want to. So, again, the prompt was very specific about the fact that we were using this as a hypothetical to say that everything in the article is true. What are the ramifications of this? Right. That's what we were asking. So what we're asking here is what most of us said is that if it's true, it requires more investigation before we decide on anything. That's what all of us said in simple, plain English, at least on my side. Now, to talk about how we got off the train, I don't know if any of us brought up Maxine Waters or any other speech. It seems to be you and Sprouticus that want to bring these up and talk about it. You guys analogize these things so much that instead of talking about the actual substantive claim in the prompt, there's a substantive claim in the prompt, and you want to talk about Maxine Waters. We spent 15 minutes talking about Maxine Waters, but the prompt had nothing to do with Maxine Waters.
So to start this off, we all pretty much said that if these people were in any way attached to violence at the Capitol, that they should be impeached and receive criminal charges. I think me and Rob were the only people that said they should receive criminal charges. So we went harsher than the people on the left. Okay,
no, you did not.
No. Yes, we did. I said I stood by Rob after he said that, and then I went on to say what I said. So
we all agree. No, one second, Sprout. Again, I'm trying to help you, buddy. Like everyone here, I'm pretty sure you, Rob, me, IRI, Sam, and Ukerist all said that if it ended up being true, because I asked you and Rob this specific fucking question, is that if all of it was true, and it turns out there was some level of collusion about like having blanket pardons for violence, would you want to like throw them out of Congress? You do not get extra brownie points saying you would throw them out ×5, like Kaioken. Like I don't give a shit. Like
okay,
we all agreed on that basic position.
This has nothing to do with where I was going, Hans. This literally has nothing to do with where I was going. But thank you for
derailing you. You're welcome. Keep going.
So me and Rob both said that they should receive criminal charges after being removed from office, because you can't be in jail and in office at the same time. So to move past that, we all basically agreed. Now we're on a different part of this topic where we're discussing, does this bombshell of an article really have anything to do with anything? And me and Rob are saying no, this is a nothing burger, and you guys keep going like, oh, what should happen, we already told you what should happen. If you were paying attention, you would have realized like, oh shit, they did say that. And maybe you can rewind the VOD afterwards and see that we both said that they should go to jail.
Can I just say, I actually agree with Rob in a sense here, that I read this article 3 times and I thought it's pretty much a nothing burger. I agree with you, Rob. I think it's hysterical. I think I read it over and over going, where's the smoking gun here? But I will say that people like Steve Bannon not showing up for his subpoena and being held in contempt of Congress makes me a little skeptical of anybody that's being investigated by this committee right now. And the January 6th Select Committee is asking these people to help and provide evidence and testify. So, I mean, forgive us if we're a little concerned that there was something bigger at play here. Let
me just ask you just a hypothetical, if you don't mind.
And one small thing, Rob. And I would say, like, you talked about how like the article isn't making any like massively strong statements. They're just like saying, here's some information we now have about people who are saying like, oh, we like met with these people. I would say that's an example of journalistic integrity. They're not making the wild accusations. They're literally saying here's some information from our 2 sources that they said they met with these people. You were correct. You literally said this about 5 minutes ago, that they didn't say that there was some massive like super collusion between like these 6 members of Congress that like started some like flavor of violent insurrection. And that's correct. The article doesn't say that. And like I would say that level of restraint, and again, I know there's dumb fucks on Twitter that are probably saying that that's the case. You're not talking to them, you're talking to us. And so when an article doesn't make the strongest claims because they don't have that information, I would say that's an example of a news outlet running with the story that they do not have all the answers on, and they're leaving, and they're not making those strong like end game conclusions specifically because there is some level of journalistic like practice happening. Does that make sense?
Listen. I guess you're saying it could have been worse. They could have editorialized that this proved that some crime was committed, but they didn't. So
that
they
absolutely is worse, dude.
Okay.
Like, you understand?
Sure,
like,
that would
be a huge
be
difference.
Okay, that would be worse. Great. I guess they also could have shot someone, and that would be worse. So what? We applaud the Rolling Stone for that? It is clear what the implications. Like, if you read the title of the article, the title is "Exclusive January 6th Protest Organizers Say They Participated in Dozens of Planning Meetings with Members of Congress and White House Staff."
No, we're against clickbait now. We never had clickbait.
Sure. I look, it's irrelevant whether or not. I'm telling you that sitting members of Congress.
You're literally saying that like the title is an implication.
Listen, I'm telling you that mainstream media people and sitting members of Congress are using this article to claim that this somehow proves that something nefarious went on. It's gotten even you guys that now you're admitting there's no bombshell, but it got even you guys to be like, what if? What if
Maybe
they actually planned violence and things like that?
So the question. Are you capable of reading a question and responding to the question?
Sure.
That was the entire purpose of prompt 1.
The entire purpose of prompt 1
is true. What are the ramifications? And you're mad at us for engaging with the question when you engage with the question in a hypothetical manner as well. What the fuck kind of attempted gotcha is this? You're like, yeah, like Sprouticus was literally just bragging that you engage with the hypothetical and that, yeah, if it did happen, we'd fucking throw those fuckers out of Congress and right into prison. Like, you literally just admitted that you engage with it, and now you're like, huh, the left is engaging with the hypothetical in the article the same way that we have. Dumb old lefties. Like, dude, come on. Like, Like
the fact that, first off, the fact that it was part of the prompt proves that this article got people talking about, well, what if people encouraged violence that were sitting members of Congress? Second, the prompt didn't specifically ask that. The prompt said, if the claims in the article is true. That's what the prompt said. You're admitting that this article didn't make those claims, and yet you're also talking about, but what if they engaged in violence? So you could ask Spectre, who created the prompt. The prompt didn't
I will read
say,
the question.
The prompt never said if they promised violence or set up violence. It never said that. You keep saying the prompt said we're supposed to talk about what would the implications be if this article was true. I started off my questions to everyone saying, well, what exactly is this article saying? Is it making any of these bombshell claims? Is it saying that any sitting member of Congress was interviewed by these people and had meetings with these whistleblowers that said, oh yes, they told us to engage in violence? No, it's not suggesting that whatsoever. And yet, both Sprouticus and I generously answered what would happen if that was the case, even though the article doesn't say that.
Out again, 1 second. So I'm going to read the question for the prompt. So their claims along since the deleted live stream from Alexander indicate that 1, Congressman promised 2 organizers a blanket pardon in unrelated ongoing investigation. 2, Trump's White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was made aware of the potential of Alexander's protest to turn violent based off a myriad of red flags, including the members of right-wing paramilitary groups in his entourage at previous Trump rallies. And 3, Congressman worked with organizers in planning the protest. If the witnesses end up testifying as expected, and the evidence which is being withheld to protect their anonymity proves sufficient, in this case, it's enough to indict the members of Congress for this behavior and these links. What should the consequences for these congressmen and former White House staffers be? It's literally right there in the fucking sentence, bro. You're engaging with this crazy, insane hypothetical.
Let's ask Spectre.
It was literally the fucking question.
Let's ask Spectre.
I don't know why you're
real quick. Spectre, you created the prompt. Did anywhere in that prompt suggest that this article said that members of Congress encouraged violence?
No, it did not.
Oh,
what it did say is that concern. What it did say was that concerns were expressed to Meadows about Ali Alexander, and the organizers went so far as to say that he had an opportunity to prevent the violence, and he did not take it. If they had simply stopped working with Ali Alexander on planning this, these 2 organizers feel like things may have not gotten out of hand. So they are holding Trump's chief of staff personally responsible for not listening to them and organizing this in such a way that it could not get out of hand.
Right. That is vastly different than the question and the hypothetical that was being suggested here. What if members of Congress were actively planning an insurrection and planning attacks and violence? That was the hypothetical that we were asked to deal with. Nowhere in your prompt did it suggest that. Even if your prompt did suggest that, how does that disprove my point that this was being brought up? It's basically dog whistling to people. Oh, see, look, members of Congress did something illegal. They did something horrible. They were involved in the insurrection. That is not what this article says. I'm saying if everything that this article claims comes up to be true, I don't see one shred of evidence of any crime whatsoever. Now, it could, hypothetically, it could be more. Hypothetically, they could testify, oh, and yes, we talked to Mark Meadows and he said, go ahead and engage in violence. That would be horrible. Mark Meadows should be indicted for that. But that's not what this article claims. And so when I bring up things like what Spectre just said there, these people were worried that they went to Mark Meadows and said, we think this guy may be violent. In response, Mark Meadows said, okay, we're not going to deal with that guy anymore. And Mark Meadows' boss, Donald Trump, said, we want the National Guard here to prevent violence. But when I bring that up, Hans says, that's a strange hypothetical. What's the point of talking about that?
So I just want to clarify, yes, what Hans was saying was there was nothing in the article saying that Congress people were involved in anything that would cause violence. But Mark Meadows did not say, I'm not going to work with this guy anymore. Mark Meadows continued to work with this guy. And that is the issue. That is why these 2 organizers are going so far as to say, we gave him an opportunity to keep this a peaceful protest, which is what we wanted. But he directly ignored us, continued to work with this man, who then went and did a live stream during the event that they think antagonized people. So that is the question. How much responsibility can we assign to him, I suppose, for this based on that?
I would like to posit a simple, logical, step, premise A, premise B leads to premise C. So looking at points 2 and 3 of the initial question, if Mark Meadows was aware of the potential of Alexander's protest to turn violent, and then point 3, these things come to light. So we are aware that Mark Meadows knows of potential violence. Part 3, Congressman worked in planning these, again, potentially violent protests that Mark Meadows is aware of. If all of those things come to light, would premise 3 not entail that we should probably investigate specific Congress people for being related to violent, planned violent, protests? I feel like that's a very easy logical leap to make for everyone who is looking at points 2 and 3 of the initial question.
It's a hypothetical. That's exactly what this article. But does
it sound?
That is exactly what this article wants people to do. That is exactly the implication. But the article, let's assume that that's all true. Let's assume that Mark Meadows and Gosar and other representatives met with this Alexander guy, and you had 2 people that were also meeting with Meadows and Gosar saying, we don't like that guy. We think that he might be a fringe. He might be crazy. He might engage in violence. Let's assume all that's true. And what's the consequences of that? You still have to prove that Meadows and Gosar believed that they were encouraging violence. Just saying, well, someone said this guy could engage in violence. So what? You could say that. What if I did that? What if I was meeting a Democrat and I said, actually, I think that these leaders of the Women's March, I think they could engage in violence. And then, God forbid, some sort of violence occurred there. And so you can't impugn the members of Congress.
You understand from either a security or an intelligence perspective that if someone says, hey, we have a shit ton of red flags about event X, and there are some powerful people assisting in the creation of event X, do you not understand why you would not want to investigate those people because of their relation to event X?
Sure, you could. I assume the FBI did that. That was the role of the FBI investigation. They were criminally investigating the people that created the stuff, that created the situation for violence and that engaged in violence. They determined that there was no pre-planning of violence. Are you willing to concede that it's entirely possible that despite the fact that this Alexander guy could look shady, that he never planned for violence in the first place?
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Okay, then why do you think that a partisan investigation that's in Congress, the January 6th committee, is going to get to the truth more than the FBI?
Because if there are information that we haven't gotten yet that the FBI hasn't ascertained, then why isn't it a good thing? In the case, this could prove your thing just as well as it could prove, say, any rabid lefties trying to destroy these 6 Republican Congress people. If these guys come out and either they're proven to be lying under oath or any number of things, or their story is again as a nothing burger as this article, then again, all of your all things you want have happened, right? We had a nothing burger of an event. If the right wing gets their flavor of Benghazi, right? Where it's someone we're attacking members of government for no reason other than some sort of partisan agenda, and everything's fine. And I'm fine with that happens. I think everyone here, IRI, me, and Sam have all said that this is a nothing burger, and that these investigations come to naught. Fucking fine. But again, we're supposed to follow these fucking procedures for a reason. We're supposed to have these investigations. And whatever way they turn out, that's fine. And again, I don't know where we're at in this other than you don't think that they're valid. And most of it seems like the lefties are saying we should just wait and see for the investigation to take place. And if you're saying that no investigation that's say partisan can take place, I can tell you part of the reason why I'd say so Democratic run, because IRI think knows a bit more about this than me, but didn't say they asked Republicans to be on the investigation committee and Republicans said no?
Yeah, they tried to create a bipartisan commission with them first.
It's so
That's a lie. That's not what it is. I can explain real quick. What they did was, I can explain real quick.
Hold on.
You brought up the point.
Hans, there's just too many people talking. We've got to the end of this topic. It's gotten a little bit unproductive right now. Rob, I appreciate you answering the question regarding Mark Meadows. Yeah.
Can I just answer this point real quick? It'll take me 10 seconds.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. The Republicans appointed people like Jim Jordan. Nancy Pelosi said he wasn't acceptable and would only accept people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kissinger. So no, the people that the Republicans appointed were turned down, and the Democrats said, but we'll take never Trump Republicans like Kissinger and Cheney. And then they tried to call that bipartisan.
All right, excellent. I do think that what you said regarding Mark Meadows and whether it even matters if he was warned is an interesting hypothetical to explore. I wish we had more time for that, but we got to go on to topic 2, which you'll probably enjoy since it's about pretty much this article being a nothing burger. So Nick Dyer, who is Marjorie. Yeah, you know what? We got time. We'll go around the room. Everybody try to make it to a minute if you can for closing statements. IRI, will start with you.
Sure. So this was a lot of fun. I know we got into it with each other, but it's great to hear people's talking points and where they're coming from. I just want to say, Rob, I looked into this coroner report, and you're right. He said that he died of natural causes, but the U.S. Capitol Police said that's great. This guy still died in the line of duty. And I'll go with their statement on when an officer is considered dying in the line of duty than anyone else. So this guy died protecting the Capitol in hand-to-hand combat with the people. However it happened, I don't know. But that's their official statement, and I'm going to believe the Capitol Police Department. And I just want to point out that the reason why we're hearing about any of this is because of the January 6th Select Committee that the Democrats put together and the Republicans fought so hard to not allow. And I'm sorry, but Liz Cheney is as much of a Republican as anyone else. She comes from the state that voted for Trump by the most percentage in 2020. So give me a break that this person is not a Republican. She just knows the truth, and you guys are willing to throw her under the bus for this. It's ridiculous. She's a Republican. Accept it.
All right. Thank you, IRI. Ukerist, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that where the conversation ended is really interesting and worth thinking about further, the formation of the committee and who was put up for it, because you know, if the stuff that's coming out right now is true, right, that there are certain Congress people who participated in the planning of January 6th, and the purpose of the commission is to investigate who knew what and when, and who actually planned for what and when, which we've all admitted could end up just being a complete nothing burger. It could be that all of this was spontaneous violence and nobody intended for this to get violent, etc. It doesn't make a ton of sense to have a committee investigating that, formed of people who are potentially part of that question, people who spoke at the rally, people who were in communication with the people who planned the rally, etc. It makes complete sense to me that we wouldn't want them on the commission because there's a bit of a conflict of interest there. I think we should all be concerned about conflicts of interest and people investigating themselves and telling us they did nothing wrong. This is an issue with the FBI and the CIA particularly. So yeah, I think that's an interesting part of the conversation. I think we kind of figured out, right, the root of the problem is that, yes, the article does not say that anybody who's named by the organizer and the planner actually knew that somebody was going to storm the Capitol and beat up a police officer. No, it doesn't say that. So if that's the case, then what? You know, we got some good answers. So.
All right. Thanks, Ukerist. Hans, go ahead.
All right. Thanks. This was a very fun topic. First, I'd like to apologize to Rob for calling you dumb. I don't think you're dumb. I think you're remarkably intelligent. You just use it to push terrible fucking politics, and I think you're purposely dumb when you need to be for the purpose of a point. Anyway, but I also almost died at the gym, but I didn't die because I was deadlifting. I died because I got a heart attack during deadlifting, so I didn't die from the deadlift. I died of natural causes. So anyway, this was a banger, and I'm excited for topic number 2. I'm gonna have a couple shots first, but I'm super excited. Or we have like a brief break between the two because I want to listen to Rob and like Sam and like Sprout's like closing statements.
Yeah, we can take a quick break, but that's going to leave us very little time for topic 2, but that's okay.
I can be fast, don't worry.
All right. Rob, go ahead.
Sure, no problem. So they gave the game away. The article was a nothing burger. That was my point the entire time. They're saying, well, what if hypothetically went further? Look, I don't give a shit what political party you are. If you're actively encouraging violence or something like that, you absolutely should be removed from office, period. The article, even if we take it at face value, everything it says, it doesn't go that far. Basically, this article is just saying people that spoke at the Stop the Steal rally were involved in the Stop the Steal rally. Yep. We knew that, and it's trying to conflate, and as you can see has occurred here, well, what if they were, again, so it's just hypotheticals. Real quick, a couple things that were said. The dying in the line of duty thing, again, the coroner's opinion is the most important opinion. For example, I could tomorrow go and stop a robbery from occurring by getting in a fist fight with the robber. If I die of a stroke the next day that's unrelated, you could still say the man was a hero, but that doesn't mean that that's what killed me. It's just nonsense. It's stupid. There is no direct correlation to anything. Again, originally, Iamimportant said 3 police officers were killed there. Then he quickly defaults to 1, and we could see that that's the propaganda that went on with this. They talk about Liz Cheney's a Republican. She's a never Trump. Jim Jordan, they say conflict of interest. Jim Jordan was the person that they didn't want on here. This article, nor any other article, suggests Jim Jordan was involved in this in any way whatsoever, so they kept him off. If we're talking about conflicts of interest, why is Nancy Pelosi on there? Isn't she directly implicated in why national security wasn't there? It was her sergeant of arms that answered directly to her that made the ultimate decision to not have security there. So isn't she implicated? Why aren't we getting subpoenas of Nancy Pelosi's records? Why aren't we getting subpoenas at the sergeant of arms records and things like that? It's odd how they just selectively choose. We mentioned Steve Bannon earlier. What this is a witch hunt designed to go after political opponents. That's why that list of documents of people they were looking for was basically every successful Trump-supporting pundit. Oh, we need all of their emails. And the rationale that's being given here is, well, they should just comply. They should just comply. We should just investigate. Fine. If Trump or DeSantis wins in 2024 and they say, oh, there's been violence that occurred against Republicans, such as against Steve Scalise. So we want all of the emails of all Democrats that ever spoke up against Trump and spoke up against Republicans. I'm assuming everyone here on the left would be like, that's totally fine. And if they don't comply with those subpoenas, that proves that there's corrupt and there's something to it. This is a witch hunt. This story is a nothing burger. It's designed to go after and paint Trump supporters as evil, horrible people that we could take away their rights. As I mentioned earlier, that former CIA Director Brennan gave the game away. He said it's about going after nationalists, it's about going after libertarians, it's about going after Trump supporters.
All right, thank you, Rob. Sam?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a couple things here. I don't know if anybody on this panel said that every single action committed by the January 6th Commission was acceptable. Maybe I misheard that, but I don't know where Rob is getting that from, that we said that every single action that the January 6th Commission has committed has been appropriate, and therefore that we have to say that if any action that is committed in the future where it could be analogous, we have to accept. It's a little bit weird for me to hear that. Again, we are Twitch panelists here. We are very smart. We can't answer and make claims that this is exactly what's going to happen or we want this to happen. We can say our beliefs and like how we're going to do things or how we believe things should be, but we're not going to get anywhere. I think that there was most of the people on this panel said that, yes, while the article didn't say that there were these things, that an investigation should be further, even if the claims are what is claimed in the article is true, that an investigation should be made further because there's always more to the story that can be extracted from an investigation. And until a formal investigation is taking place, we can't say 100% for sure one way or the other if any of the information that is relevant to January 6th points in one direction or another. And I think that's like the thing that I wanted to point out the entire time is that if what Hans was saying was true is correct. But again, I don't think that that we have to analogize this to like Maxine Waters or anything else. We could talk about the substantive claims that are made about this article. That was my problem. I don't think that like talking about Maxine Waters and what we would do if they're analogous is like means anything because we're not Congress. We're not a governing body. We're a Twitch panel talking about the prompt that we were given.
All right, thanks, Sam. And last but not least, Sprouticus, your closing statement.
All right, awesome. I use my closing statement just to spit out some facts here. All right. In a letter to Representative James Comer, ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, an NIH official admits that a limited, quote unquote, limited experiment was conducted in order to test if spike proteins from naturally occurring bat coronaviruses circulated in China were capable of binding to the human ACE2 receptor in a mouse model. This right here proves that Fauci lied before Congress. Moving forward, by the way, that was from ABC News. Moving forward, when we're talking about the commission, January 6th commission, Jim Banks was also kicked off the commission. That's a congressman from the state of Indiana. He was kicked off the commission because he questioned the legality of some votes cast in the 2020 election. He was kicked off the commission because he claimed the select committee was created to malign conservatives. That's why Jim Banks was kicked off the commission, because of his political beliefs. He also said that he wasn't going to allow this commission to smear people just because of their political beliefs. That's why Nancy Pelosi didn't want him on the committee. Extremely, extremely unprecedented. Never before has a Speaker of the House denied the minority party the power to choose the people who are on the committee. Unprecedented event, never happened before, and Nancy Pelosi is the first person to do it. And so it's beyond me to call this. I can't even bipartisan. It's not bipartisan. Nancy Pelosi decided that the conservatives chose weren't allowed on the panel. That to me is just disgusting.
All right, excellent. Yeah, if we're going to take a 5-minute break so everybody can get some water and whatever, and then we'll come back and do the last topic.
I just bullied Koala into like getting the drinks for me. Now we don't really have to do the break now, but I appreciate it regardless. This has been a fucking banger and a half. I need to find my blue light blocking glasses. Koala, have you seen my glasses? Like my eyes are starting to hurt.
All right, I'll go ahead and pop open this beer too, if that's what we're doing here for the second topic.
You can't drink. You're hosting.
Well, hey, it's one beer. It's one beer. I'm a big boy. All right, I think we'll be okay. Anyway.
Yeah, like, okay, you're allowed to drink on stream, but you're not allowed to apply that blue light skin cream, okay? That's like, that's a hard drug right there.
Oh, God. Is that what we're doing? We're on that discourse again?
Yeah. Rob, like...
What's up?
Oh, the shot went out to you, big guy.
Oh, thank you. What are you drinking?
Just some cinnamon whiskey.
Oh, Fireball?
Oh yeah, I'm like a 12-year-old girl. I like sweet shit. We went to a brewery tonight. I had a thing of cider. I had a German Dunkel, which is really good. And then I had this, I was so disappointed. It was called, I love porters. So I've been trying like all the porters I could find. And I found, it was called Grams Oatmeal Porter. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like a nice, like, oaty, or like I almost thought it was like gonna be like a graham cracker-esque, and there was a little bit of graham cracker, but it was so bitter. It almost felt like a stout. And I was so sad. I was like, I like vanilla and chocolate porters. Those are my jam.
I've been drinking this Yingling porter with Hershey's. It's not bad.
Oh, okay. I've been seeing those at the store. Is it good?
Yeah, I liked it. But But to give you a little background, I drink Busch Light regularly, so I don't know that I would accept my taste as.
Hey! Like I just graduated college, man. Like I've seen enough Natty Ice in my life to understand. Like my favorite like bad beer is Miller. Me and my buddy used to go to my buddy his name's Laminar, bro. He's one of my mods. I would go to his house like every weekend. We would like crush weights for 3 hours in the gym. Then we'd go back and like split a 12-pack and like a thing of whiskey.
That's funny that it's your favorite because I'm drinking a High Life right now. Champagne of beers.
Hey,
but I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Also, Koala, I said get 2 shots. One wasn't supposed to. That bastard took my other one. I told him to get me 2, and he got 2.
Mute them for a minute, so whenever they're ready to go. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that went so well for them there, the first panel. I mean, it's quite simple. The article doesn't say what they wanted to talk about. The article's a nothing burger, as they were forced to admit. Yeah, if people, it's a hypothetical you could say about anyone. If sitting members of Congress encourage violence, should they be held accountable? Yeah. And I just think it's funny that Sam at the end's like, why are we talking about Maxine Waters? Because constantly what you see is the double standard. Now we're talking about January 6th in October, right? When they're admitting that the article's a nothing burger. And then I'm like, okay, but as long as you're willing to say that sitting Congress people that encourage violence should be held accountable, then fine. Well, all right. Well, I'm ready to go here. I'm ready.
We'll probably end up with about 30 minutes for this topic, so try to keep your opening statements as short as possible. Nick Dyer, who is Marjorie Taylor Greene's communications director, responded to a request for questioning as no one cares about January 6th when gas prices are skyrocketing, grocery store shelves are empty, unemployment is skyrocketing, businesses are going bankrupt, our border is being invaded, children are forced to wear masks, vaccine mandates are getting workers fired, and 13 members of our military are murdered by the Taliban, and Americans are left stranded in Afghanistan. Is Nick correct? Does holding accountable those responsible for the storming of the Capitol even matter to the American electorate? And should the Democrats be focusing their time and resources on pursuing convictions at all against any offending congressman? So we'll start with IRI for an opening statement.
Yeah, I'll just go as quickly as I can here. I definitely think that this investigation is important, that the House does it. That is half of their power oversight. And the DOJ did their investigation, as Rob pointed out, the FBI, and they're looking for certain things, who committed crimes and all that. But there's also a legislative angle to this, and that's where the House comes in. And they're looking at, do we need to tamper with existing criminal code? Do we need to adjust the 1887 Electoral Count Act? These are the things that the House cares about. And they also want to see if any of their members were involved. I would disagree vehemently that there's more important things to deal with. And this is something we can spin a lot of balls at once. And boy, Joe Biden was handed quite the mess from Donald Trump. So he's got to do quite a bit here. But I think we can handle it. I think that those things that Nick pointed out are due to Biden kicking so much ass and the economy roaring. I mean, if you zoom out a bit, you'll see that demand is up for products. That's what's causing these supply chain problems. Gas prices are up because people are out there driving. I mean, Biden is just doing a wonderful job. And all of these problems, most of them are because we are doing so well financially.
All right, excellent. Ukerist, go ahead.
Yeah, this is really tricky. I never want to agree with anybody who works for Marjorie Taylor Greene, but like, there's a point here, right? That most of the people who are going to end up voting, especially come 2022 elections, when a lot of these people are going to be challenged for their seats. So people like MTG and Madison Cawthorn have tons of people running against them in their own party and Democrats, right? So come 2022, yeah, I don't think anybody is going to care about it. I think rhetoric around it is going to be mostly ineffective, or at least it'll be effective for the Democrats running against them to turn out their electorate, but it will be just as effective at mobilizing the people who are going to vote for the incumbent. So, yeah, the unfortunate fact of politics is stuff like this is a short-term memory issue. As far as whether or not we should be spending time and resources doing this, yeah, of course we should. Like, I think that's what we should do, because I'm an idealist, and I think we should, deal with things like, how did, this violent thing happen? Like, it's pretty wild event, and we should exhaust resources to deal with it. But I don't think it's going to be determinative for upcoming elections.
All right, thank you, Ukerist. We'll move on to Hans.
Yeah, I think this is important enough to handle. For all this sort of stuff, I think it'd be here's an olive branch to my favorite cons in the call. I think we can all agree that there are certain issues that matter more to us than to other things. Say, like, I care more about say, like, the passing of, like, the infrastructure package than I do about neo-pronoun discourse on Twitch and Twitter. I think it's very fair for us to say that some things are more important than others, but I would agree with IRI that this is important enough to warrant the amount of energy that's being expended for it. And if that's we disagree about that, I would like an itemized list of all the things that we think are the most important and why we can't specifically do this. So, yeah, happy to chat.
All right, thank you, Hans. Rob, go ahead.
So it might surprise people. I actually don't mind. If you legitimately think that members of Congress were involved in some sort of coup or something, then yeah, that would be important. Most people realize that that's bullshit, just like the Russia collusion thing. The Democrats pushed the Russia collusion thing over and over and over, and every time it was polled, people were like, we don't give a shit about this. We care about illegal immigration. We care about healthcare. We care about the economy. But they kept shoving it, because to the Democrats, they see these things where they could abuse systems of power and abuse investigations. They see that as the potential for, then we could just smear all of our opponents as corrupt, and then our policies aren't popular enough to be able to stand on them, despite the fact that you will have people like Iamimportant that could look at our hyperinflation, could look at people not going to work, supply chain issues, crisis at the border, crisis in Afghanistan, opioid crisis, and the fact that the only thing Biden seems to be able to do is to try to ride Trump's coattails on vaccines while imposing tyranny on people. They'll look at that and go, this is great, this is fantastic. Most people aren't like that, and you can see the polling numbers showing that people understand that Biden's an unmitigated disaster, and so they bring out the old trope of, oh boy, let's just accuse people of engaging in a coup, like we did with the Russia thing that was a joke for 4 years. I will just be curious to ask what people's standard are for when they think these sort of things are worth investigating, and if they're willing to say that if the other side or other groups do that, that investigation would be just as important. So I'll be happy to get that in open comments.
All right, thank you, Rob. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that have been important, and I'll try not to retrace steps. But again, I think what IRI said about the reasoning for why this commission is important is a very good point. I think what Ukerist said about being an idealist is important about this, and the fact that this should be done whether or not it affects the election in 2022, because there are implications beyond the election. Politics exist outside of elections. I know for the majority of people that follow politics as a sport, it doesn't. But the political wheels keep turning as election years are not happening. So I think these mechanisms that the government has to impact politics are important and should go on. And I think that that's like the most important thing for me.
All right, perfect. And we will finish it up with Sprout, and then we'll move on into open discussion.
You know, it's not popular. This January 6th committee is not popular when we're having things like Biden absolutely pulling out of Afghanistan. We're having things like grocery store shelves being empty, unemployment skyrocketing. We're having these things. No, it's not popular. The January 6th committee is not popular. At the same time, we have to make sure that if something was done, that it gets taken care of, popular or not. But with that being said, if it proves to be untrue, just like the other unpopular action Democrats have taken this year, which was impeaching President Trump, ending of last year, impeaching President Trump was not a popular decision because it was a bullshit impeachment that wasn't even overseen by the chief of the Supreme Court. So with that being said, bullshit is not popular among the American people. The American people like to see Congress actually doing their job, but when does that actually happen? So I would say that we actually put new congressmen up there and hopefully they do their job. But no, this January 6th committee is not popular because it's a partisan hack job at a committee after Nancy Pelosi took the unprecedented steps of removing Republicans from the committee.
All right, perfect. So we'll go ahead and move on into open discussion here. I think that what IRI said about, there might be a legislative angle here. Maybe we need to change a few laws based on what we discovered happened is interesting. So if we want to discuss that, I certainly don't mind at all. But yeah, just whoever wants to. I think Ukerist, you had something to say. We'll start with you.
Yeah. I want to qualify my earlier statement. The area where I disagree with MTG's press person there is that I think there are some people who do care deeply about January 6th for whom it is a mobilizing force in support of Republicans. So this has happened a couple of times at different events that Madison Cawthorn has done, where people have come up to him and asked, hey, what are we going to do about freeing those political prisoners who were arrested because of the January 6th stuff? And he basically said, like, the only reason we haven't stormed the gates and freed them is we don't know where they're all being held. So there are people who really do deeply care about January 6th for whom it's a rallying cry for people like MTG and Marjorie Taylor Greene, or MTG and Madison Cawthorn, where it's part of their reason for supporting them, is they think if we can keep these people in office, they're going to change the tide of the unjust prosecution of these people who were arrested for storming the Capitol.
People should be concerned
wild
about that. We've seen judges admonish prosecutors over and over again for not giving discovery to defendants. No one's been charged with insurrection, treason, or anything like that. They've been charged with trespassing and delaying Congress, things that happen quite frequently in other protests. We just had
assaulting police officers. And
sure,
things like
who
that,
was charged with it?
Well, I could pull up the USA Today article. Hang on, there's a list
most
of
of these people,
person, yeah.
most of the people that are there aren't being charged with any violence whatsoever. They're being charged with trespassing and things like that. Like I said, and
exactly like what happened with the Kavanaugh hearings.
Sure, right. And those people weren't held in solitary confinement, weren't not allowed to have discovery of the evidence, didn't have thousands of hours of video footage withheld, and etc. Right. So I understand people being upset about that. I just have one question, just one for the people on the left. Is the implication here, the reason that this is so important is that finding out who was behind and knew about January 6th is very important? Is that the reason that you think this is so important?
Yeah, we'll go down the list of everybody on the left to respond. Please don't cut them off. Go ahead, IRI.
Yeah, I mean, this is an attack on our Capitol. I think it's important to find out what led to it, what the president was up to, people around him. He seems to be hiding something and encouraging his people not to testify for some reason. They're more than welcome to come in and plead the fifth if they're worried about incriminating themselves. So why not investigate this? I think it's a pretty big event, and it should be investigated fully.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Hans.
Not to restate IRI's thing. I found a fun Gallup poll I could send everybody. It's about, say, like what problems you consider like most important to you. The highest issue that people have is COVID and diseases, which is like 21% considered like the most important issue, like in America. Then you have, say, the government / poor leadership at 19%. Then you have economic problems at like all combined like 16%. And then we have fun things like the gap between rich and poor, the high cost of living and inflation, wage issues, lack of money, crime and violence, elections and election reform, education, terrorism, situation with China, foreign policy, and national security, all at like 1% of considering the most important issue. I would say that this issue like ties pretty neatly into, say, elections, election security, national security, and it's at 1%. So I think we could all agree that if I sent you this list, I don't think there's really any issue on here, with like maybe like 2 or 3 exceptions, depending on like if you don't care about, say, like the gap between like rich and poor people. All these things are important, and so I would say like even like in this case, like I don't think say, oh, not enough people care about X, that we shouldn't talk about X, because at that point I would say 1% of Americans say that education is the most important issue. Should we just fucking stop talking about education or passing policy related to education? I don't think that's like important. I think we should like hit these things as they come. And like if some people don't want to talk about it, again, like I am an institutionalist. I still believe that we should solve the problems as they come to our country. We don't get to say, oh, hey, Afghanistan happened poorly, let's just ignore it because there are more popular issues to talk about. I think like it's a responsibility of the government to deal with whatever issues as they come up. And if that's Afghanistan, if that's like in this case January 6th, like investigation like happening in Congress, then do what you got to do. And like if you don't like this, there's plenty of other stuff like the economic like stimulus bill and the infrastructure bill like fucking passing Congress and stuff. There's other things that our government's currently doing. Apparently, like despite all the things that people on Twitch like mauled about, like apparently we can walk and chew gum at the same time because we're doing more than one thing at once. So
I didn't really answer the question. Is the reason that this is important because we need to find out who was behind January 6th?
I think behind, I would say, is a loaded statement. I would I'm trying to answer your question like as honestly as possible.
Sure.
I think it's important to get all the information possible, and if we have to do, say, like an investigation through our intel agencies, like in the case of CIA, FBI, like what have you, that's great. If we can have another one through Congress, and they can do their jobs about, say, like protecting election security, then great to have there. And again, like olive branch to Rob and Sprout and everybody. If it turns out that there was no like pre-planned anything or anything like that, then fucking W for you. Like it was a terrible protest that turned into like a violent riot that like threatened the outcome of an election. Like, and we can like let bygones be bygones, and like we can say, hey, this was a terrible thing. We should never let it happen again. But like there was no like specific like malintent in terms of the planning of this operation. I'd be comfortable saying that, absolutely. But I would like to know more. In this case, if we could learn more about this, in the case of whether that's like that old article or the investigation, just let it run its course, let the processes and the levers of power do their thing, and hopefully we can find out a little bit more before we put this all to rest. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Sorry, I didn't mean to be like that.
You think it's important to know what
yeah, of course.
behind it.
Gotcha. Wherever it lies. Yeah.
Because I have a follow-up question, but that's fine.
Okay. All right, and Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree with like our IRI and Hans has said that I think it's important to know what happened, no matter where the cards lay. And I think like it's a very important thing to remember the phrase "measure twice, cut once."
Cool. So I assume all of you would be for an investigation into FBI informants and what exactly the FBI knew.
I mean, sure. Like there's current I don't know if you know.
Not at all.
You're not for that?
Wait. So the FBI can't be corrupt. But I mean, here's the other thing. I was gonna wait to say this, but here's the other thing, right? So IRI's bringing it up. Yeah, they can come here and plead the fifth because that's their right. Well, they're part of a past presidential cabinet. It's also their right to have executive privilege called, which seems to be not what Congress wants. So they're going to hold him in contempt of Congress, even though it was underneath executive privilege.
Trump hasn't even claimed it.
Privilege.
He hasn't even claimed executive privilege, Sprout. He hasn't claimed it.
It's irrelevant.
I mean, I'm going to check you on that.
Quick, I don't mind moving on to this, but I just find it funny. Like, if we're trying to get to the bottom of this, for example, we know there was a man named Ray Epps that we have video footage over and over again of being one of the people, even the day before, that was encouraging people to enter the Capitol. People were shouting "Fed" at him. He was one of the first people that actually did the breaches. He was whispering to police the whole time. He was considered, I believe, the 12th most wanted person at January 6th, was on the FBI's website. And then mysteriously, once Revolver News started to report on him and his connections that he potentially had to the FBI, all of a sudden he was removed from the FBI list. He's never been charged, despite clearly seeing agitating for people breaking into the Capitol. And we have other articles that showed that there were other people that were known FBI informants that were encouraging people and knew about this beforehand. So why isn't this special commission in calling forth FBI people getting their emails? And surely you all would say, yes, we find it equally important to make sure exactly what the FBI knew and why they weren't prepared for this riot that ended up occurring. I assume you would all be for that.
Okay, so Rob, I would love to like answer this, but again, like I have not read this story. Sure. I don't know whether to call this a conspiracy or not. So, if it is the case that there was some like magic FBI like person who like led the charge and like incited all of this, and they were like the first person over the breach, and like they caused January 6th, and then they mysteriously like vanished from the roster, then I think literally every person would have a problem with that. In the same way that you would have a problem with it if it actually turned out that like those 6 members of Congress participated in planning like a potential insurrection, we would also have a fucking problem if like it turns out that January 6th was some like massive false flag operation. But right now, I don't like really see that as like an option. But I think Ukerist is trying to like say something, but like
wait.
You're
So
welcome
I've got a fact check. I have it from I have it from NBC News twice that Trump has used executive privilege once in, when was this made? October of 2020, October 12, 2021, and more recently, October 25th, 2021, Trump has used executive privilege in this committee.
For his documents, not for these individuals testifying.
Okay, but Biden has declined it, so
Biden has said it doesn't count. He'll release whatever documents he wants.
So I'm confused. Is executive privilege not allowed now from previous administrations? Because it's been pretty much common practice that previous administrations be able to call executive privilege. Is that not allowed now? Do you no longer have to go to the Supreme Court or a court to challenge the executive privilege, and once someone else gets to office, they can tell you to fuck off with all that shit and decide they're going to release whatever they want to. So executive privilege is worthless now, right?
Well, hold on. That was addressed to Hans, please.
I'm asking a question of clarification.
But he was addressing. Okay, go ahead. He was addressing IRI, so I want to give him a chance to respond when you're done, and then Ukerist wants to say something. So go ahead.
I've done too many deadlifts, and I don't know like what executive privilege is. So if you could explain it for the dummy on the panel, I'd really, really appreciate it.
Executive privilege is when a presidential administration decides that a certain amount of information is to be withheld, assuming that it's national security. There's several different reasons why they can call executive privilege, but basically it's to withhold information.
So, for example, Eric Holder and Barack Obama's emails to each other regarding Fast and Furious were withheld from investigations because they claimed that their conversations had executive privilege and the other people didn't have the right to see them because it was important discussions between the executive that would harm national security if it was released to the people. That's basically in a nutshell what executive privilege is.
What was the President Nixon?
What was the like question, like what was like the reason for like the request of like that specific email? I think like again I haven't like read that specific story, so I'm not sure like what like
talking about Trump.
Democracy. No, like
Eric Holder.
The Eric Holder stuff.
It was
okay.
Eric Holder's.
I can tell you real quick.
I'll make it very quick.
Okay.
Eric Holder's Justice Department was engaged in a scandal called Fast and Furious, where they gave lethal weapons to Mexican drug cartels.
I thought you were talking about the movie. That makes a lot more sense.
No, it's not a movie.
Like they're just like.
Hold on, Hans. We're running out of time, and I really do want to let IRI respond. So go ahead, Rob, and then everybody just let him go.
I'll just be real quick. So those guns ended up being used to kill innocent people and federal agents, and so people wanted to get to the bottom of exactly what happened here. And in an unprecedented move, Obama said Eric Holder's emails were not to be seen because of executive privilege because it was a national security risk.
Okay, cool. Then I'll bite the bullet and say like, hey, I don't like that when Obama did it. I think being able to claim executive privilege like on like say potential crimes or issues that your administration did like back when you were in power. I think there's a potential issue of say like each like previous administration like imprisoning the old one, like we saw like some examples of that like in Brazil with like Lula and shit right now. But I do like think that we should be able to hold previous administrations to account, especially specifically when like in the case of the executive privilege is being used to avoid like a question specifically related to I'd say like our national election security. But like I understand like how that might be frustrating with you, and I'd probably sit with you like if I hear more like clarifying information about like that issue in regards to like say Obama and Holder. That seems like pretty sus as well. So and if it's unprecedented, then like clearly like I don't like that precedent. Like you know what I mean? I would prefer a precedent where important issues like done by like previous administrations are kind of like brought to light, especially if it's important for an investigation that's going through Congress. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Ira, I think that you were asked basically by Sprout if executive privilege is something that should be able to be struck down by the sitting president, Biden, if I'm recalling correctly.
Well, I don't know if the sitting president, but it was denied for Nixon when he tried to claim executive privilege for those tapes that he had, and that was struck down. So it's not unprecedented, but
who was that struck down by?
I don't have. What are we doing here? Come on, let's talk about January 6th.
I'm curious if it was struck down by the courts.
I believe so.
Yes, it's United States v. Nixon, 1974.
So it was struck down by the courts, not the sitting president. So the sitting president can't just be, nope, I reject your executive privilege, and just do it anyways. And that's what Biden should do. Biden's not doing that. Biden is deciding that he has he's God, Emperor, King, and he can do what he wants, and he doesn't need the courts.
They can sue. Trump can sue him if he feels that he's doing something unconstitutional.
I look forward to the lawsuit. He already has.
But again,
Trump's taking a lot of L's in those lawsuits, so I'm sure he'll add another one, won't hurt him. But January 6th was unprecedented. And so I think we've got a situation here where Biden said, look, something terrible happened. Again, they tried to stop the peaceful transition of power. And so it's time to release the tapes and emails, whatever. So that's why Biden made that decision.
Again, but then why are we okay with the tapes and the emails and all that stuff that the FBI is withholding not being released? It's unprecedented.
I don't know what you're referring to, Rob.
Like, for example, there are tens of thousands of hours of surveillance footage that are being held by the FBI that won't even be released to defendants under discovery. Well, if all this evidence shows exactly what you say it shows, right, not just the defendants, but the American people. If this was unprecedented and it was such a terrible thing, then why not release all the evidence?
I don't know, Rob. I don't know what their reason is for withholding it, but I'm sure they have a valid reason. I respect the Department of Justice's decision. I'm sorry.
I mean, and again, this is one of the problems I have. This is clearly being used as a partisan witch hunt. That's what's going on. We have significant, I respect Han saying I haven't read the article. That's fine. I mean, for God's sakes, no one can explain all of us to read everything. Totally understand it. But there have been literal news articles that were written that confirmed that there were FBI informants that were there that knew of this previously. So even if you say it wasn't a false flag, aren't there questions that arise that well, wait a minute, exactly when did the FBI know that there was going to be violence there? And why didn't they do something differently? Particularly when the Trump administration was asking for increased security. Why didn't the FBI communicate and say, wait a minute, we have informants that are telling us that there's
what are you implying?
Well,
what are you implying, Rob?
Two things.
What are you implying?
The first implication I'm making is it seems odd that many people that say this is so important despite the litany of scandals and the litany of problems that was outlined in the question by Spectre, that this is still very important because the issue of January 6th is so important. My question is, why stop when it's only the involvement of Republicans? Why not say, wait a minute, why aren't we questioning the FBI and what they knew? Why aren't we questioning Nancy Pelosi and what she knew?
They're not going to. How do you know they're not going to?
What articles have been subpoenaed?
They have until the spring to conduct their investigation. You can't do everything at once.
Fair enough. That's fair. Then will you admit if they don't do that? If Nancy Pelosi's commission does not do that and subpoena articles or subpoena evidence from the FBI, that you would have a problem with that?
If I saw the FBI's reasoning and I didn't agree with it, then I would have a problem with it, sure. But I don't know what their reasoning is, Rob.
But again, we already, the reasoning's real quick. Now, I could go further with the
They may not have been asked for it.
Right. So what could have happened was it turns out that just like with the Whitmer case, because keep in mind, this is an unprecedented. We just had a case where we were told by the FBI, we broke up a plot to stop the kidnapping of a governor. Only we found out the majority of the people that created and were involved in that plot were FBI agents and FBI informants. They created the plot, duped a couple of people, and arrested them. The same thing could have happened January 6th. We're now finding evidence that there were FBI informants that had prior knowledge of what was...
This is conspiracy theory stuff.
It's not conspiracy theory. That's absolutely true.
That's a dramatic retelling. So, specifically in regards to that Michigan case, there were FBI people who were informants inside that operation. They did not lead it. And there were multiple instances where the FBI informants told people, hey, this is getting serious. If you don't believe in this, you need to get out. I feel like yes, it absolutely.
Well, I just want to say, Rob, do you see what world you live in, Rob? Where you don't even trust the FBI and the DOJ. How do you even exist in that world? Isn't it a little weird to walk around I don't trust? I'm smarter than them. Are you really taking on the 150,000 strong Department of Justice because you read a few articles? I mean, do you think you've got it all figured out? Why do you not trust your own Department of Justice?
Real quick, let's turn these tables. You literally are for the January 6th Commission after the FBI has came out and said that there was no pre-planning of it. So you literally, your entire position on this, real quick. So as was admitted by Hans and I think everyone on the left, this article was a nothing burger. It didn't really say anything, but you're willing to say, you're willing to say that we need to continue to investigate it despite the fact that the FBI has said that there was no pre-planned attack or anything like that. So you live in a world where you don't trust the FBI and instead you trust Nancy Pelosi and her commission.
No. I trust the FBI to do their investigation, whatever they were looking into, but I also trust Congress to do their own investigation, just like you guys with your Benghazi nonsense for years. Did you not trust that? Did you not feel that enough investigation was done by the Department of Justice that you needed that
Benghazi
too?
was a waste of time and money. I've said this over and over and over again, and that's why I continue to say
Trey
the January
Gowdy
6th committee is a waste of time and money.
Trey Gowdy agrees with you.
No, the Benghazi Commission did prove the fundamental fact that we were lied to, and we were told that a video was the reason for the Benghazi attack because the Obama administration wanted to stop. But it's true that happened. But nonetheless, Benghazi has nothing
Why
to
do you
with
pick
this.
and choose?
The point. What do you mean pick and choosing? What do you mean pick and choosing? It's not that I pick and
which
choose.
investigations you like at the FBI. On one hand, you've got an FBI that sets up Gretchen Whitmer plot, and on the other hand, you got the FBI did a very thorough investigation of January 6th, and you trust them.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not
this?
saying I trust them. Like, for example, if I would say even CNN says Trump didn't drink bleach, that doesn't mean I trust everything CNN says. It means that I know that CNN is massively against Trump, and even they are willing to admit. Now, not thinking people will say, "Oh, that proves that you must believe."
Everything you said proves your worldview. You said if they disagree with you, it's because it's conspiracy.
That's not what I said.
If they agree with you, and even Trump drank bleach, it's because it's so unironically true that even the most anti-Trump outlets can support something. So either they agree with you because it's true, or they disagree with you because it's a conspiracy.
No one said that. I didn't say anytime I disagree with someone that it's a conspiracy. What I said was there's a fundamental truth that when you have political agents or political biased people that even they are willing to admit something, then it's worth looking at. There is no doubt that the FBI led by Rosenstein, that was led by McCabe, that was led by Comey, etc., had an axe to grind with Donald Trump, and they spent 4 years doing everything they could. We had Chuck Schumer admit to us that the FBI would, quote, find 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at Trump for criticizing the intel agencies. So even when that FBI is unable to find any evidence after one of the largest manhunts in history that there was a pre-planned attack, it seems like that we should say, what evidence is there that this was the case? The only evidence that we've been able to find is from a partisan committee and a Rolling Stone article that you all admitted was a nothing burger.
You guys,
Rob,
had your chance. To get a bipartisan commission, Rob. You guys had your chance.
No,
we gave you everything you wanted in that Kevin McCarthy letter. You know this. You guys refused to take yes for an answer. Don't
we already went through this.
They target on this commission.
All right. You still got you got the chance to have a bipartisan Senate committee for Benghazi. Then it went to a House committee, and guess what? It was still bipartisan. And guess what? The Speaker of the House still did not decline members of the Democratic Party from sitting in the committee. And Rob, the FBI, they're above questioning because they've never done anything wrong. Waco. Oh, sorry.
They lie all the time. They lie all the time.
They've never done anything wrong.
And again, the point is this. The point is that we have people that trust authority so much, they say, I trust the FBI no matter what. I'm saying that the FBI should no longer, they should be disbanded. They should no longer be trusted at face value until they present evidence to suggest it. But that doesn't mean that they're always wrong. My point I'm making quite simply is 2 things. One, you should be as interested, given the history of the FBI and their knowledge, just recent history of them having informants and agents that were involved in plots. You should want them to be questioned and see their records if we're really interested in getting behind what happened in January 6th. And second, how could you
if there's a terrorist organization, would you prefer we have informants in there or not?
Real quick.
Hold on.
And secondly, I'll answer that too. And secondly, given that, why would you not want, if you're going to say that we need to investigate everything that happened, why wouldn't we want to investigate everything, including the FBI? Instead, we only want to investigate Congress people. Now, I lost my train of thought there with what Hans was saying, but I'll answer this real quick. I have no problem with informants being involved in a terrorist organization. But doesn't this, let me just ask you, Hans, you seem more reasonable in this question. Let's say that the FBI had totally benevolent motives to get informants in the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and whatever else, right? And that those informants knew before January 6th happened that something bad was going to happen, and they contacted the FBI. Wouldn't you like to get to the bottom of the answer as to why the FBI failed to report that?
Hold on. So I think that IRI said that he would be interested in them doing that, and that unless the FBI, unless they can provide a decent reason not to give those documents to Congress, if they're subpoenaed, they absolutely should, and they have the spring to do so. So I just want to clarify, and I'm doing this quickly because we're running out of time here, and I do want to do closing statements and have everybody a chance to plug their stuff. But go ahead, Hans.
If I could briefly respond to Rob. I believe for most members of the FBI and the CIA, in terms of information and informants, a lot of these people just provide the information to their superiors, which a lot of them are explicitly say the president, the executive branch, or policymakers. So even if we gave them all those information, they said, hey, there's problems. It seems like there were a good amount of people in it was specifically in the article that there were some people who organized the protest that like there were red flags, so there's like a potential violence, right? In that case, like I think you're right that there could be a failure from the executive branch to act, right? Whether it's like Mayor Bowser, whether it's Trump, whether it's like whoever the fuck who could have like enhanced security based on those red flags. But like in a lot of cases, the like information like apparatus in America, like a lot of them isn't like making executive decisions. It's providing that information to people like Trump. And if people like Trump or Bowser or whoever the fuck like has that info doesn't choose to act on it, then it's not the failure of like that intelligence. But like I think you would agree that I would absolutely prefer that we have like informants in like whether it's like Al Qaeda, whether it's the Oath Keepers, whether it's the Taliban, whether it's like the 3%ers, whoever the fuck who's like a potential danger. Like in the fucking Weathermen, I would prefer that in like crazy left wing orgs too, like just to make sure that like we're not like having crazy shit, right? I think that's a very normal thing, and I think something we should like expect. And I would all like God's like I know everyone's like anti FBI here and anti like Intel like people stuff, but it's like I would prefer that like we have like people inside these movements that can tell us about like information about their because I don't I'd prefer us to not like I'd say more information is good in that case, right? I think we could all agree on that, right, Rob? Like we would prefer to have people in there, and then I would probably hold accountable the people who got the information, who were told about the red flags and did nothing, right? Or didn't do enough. I would hold those people more accountable as opposed as opposed to like, accusing the yeah.
But again,
what's so
normal thing. Yeah.
All right, so Rob, try and keep it short if you can, because we're going to go into closing statements, and then if anybody does want to stay around because they want to hash stuff out, I've got time for it. But I want to give people who got to go the time to go. All right, so
thank you.
Okay, just to answer that real quick, I don't have a problem with informants being in organizations. The problem is how they're selectively done by our intel communities. This happens all the time. You could look at the FBI investigation into the Clinton administration or the Clinton campaign versus their investigation into the Trump campaign, just to get an idea of how that double standard applies. Remember, the FBI has said groups like Antifa aren't a group; they're just an idea. Despite the fact that they took over 6 city blocks in Seattle and murdered a young African-American boy. We don't hear about any infiltration there. We don't hear the left saying we need to demand answers to that before we move on. We had billions of dollars of damage that occurred from groups that rioted over and over all summer that literally were using firebombs to burn down police precincts, trying to trap police in as they lit them on fire. And yet, I see Iamimportant celebrating that. And yet we don't see, oh wait, even though only 1% of people think that's important, it's important that we understand and get the investigation to Democratic Congress people that may have been in contact with Black Lives Matter or other groups like that. The point I'm making about this is, one, there was a bunch of shady things that we could see proof from video that it seems like people that were feds or were connected to feds were helping lead this. And second, even if you don't believe that and you say it's crazy and conspiratorial, okay, well still, don't we want to know exactly what the FBI informants reported? Because the FBI's official position is there was no pre-planning, which gets me to the third point, which I'm being maligned is, what kind of worldview is it that you don't trust the FBI? Well, one, because I could see how the FBI has been corrupt in the past. Iamimportant would be the same person sitting here telling you, if you were like, I don't think we should invade Iraq, he'd be saying, what kind of worldview is that? You don't trust the CIA? You don't trust the DOJ? You don't trust them? That's who Iamimportant is. He has complete faith in the institutions, which you can see what that leads to. And second, he's not trusting the FBI if he's for this January 6th commission, because the FBI already did their investigation. So why don't you trust it?
Okay, well, IRI, I guess you can respond to that in your closing statement and go ahead and shout yourself out. Again, if anybody wants to stick around because they feel like they want to hash more stuff out, I've got nothing to do tonight. But yeah, I said 2 hours, so we're going to try and keep it short. We're going to go just a few minutes over. I apologize for that. Go ahead, IRI.
So I look at the FBI as part of Department of Justice, a big organization, and there's going to be some bad apples there and some bad things happen once in a while. But overall, I think that they're fighting hard to keep us all safe, and I choose to trust our government. I know it's crazy, but you do too every time you turn on the faucet and drink water and walk down the street and assume you're not going to die. So I'm sorry, I know I seem crazy to you that I trust law enforcement, Rob, but I'm on the left. It's crazy that I've got to back the blue here and stand up for the Capitol Police when they say an officer of theirs died in the line of duty, and you have the balls to argue that. I find that interesting. So sorry if I trust our government here. It's really weird how the shoe is on the other foot now, and we back the blue, and you guys are out here fighting the Capitol Police. It's insane to me. Anywho, I had a lot of fun, believe it or not. I love all these guys. I love talking politics. I love Rob. I have no problem. He's my fellow American. I know him and I are fighting for the same thing. We just have different ways to get there. I know this. And if you guys want to come hang out, I talk politics on my channel with a focus on Capitol Hill, the House, and the Senate. We watch a lot of C-SPAN. We're nerds like that. We'd love to have you. Come hang out with us.
All right, thank you, IRI. Yeah, your stream is definitely the only way that I can digest C-SPAN, so everybody definitely make sure to check that out. Go ahead, Ukerist.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there at the end. It's pretty scattershot. I'll just say, yeah, like I said, I'm an idealist. Like, I would be perfectly fine with increased oversight of the entire executive branch, including the Department of Justice, including the presidency. When it comes to the limits of executive privilege, I put something in Spectre's chat, and I put it in the text chat in the Discord, right? That executive privilege is something that we're still kind of figuring out. It's not solidified, like the limits of it, and there have been plenty of cases, like we mentioned with Nixon, where it's been overruled. Right, that the qualification is if the information that they're seeking in this investigation likely contains important evidence to the investigation that they can't get elsewhere. Now, I take Sprouticus's point, right, that there's a process for this going through the courts. So it is a little weird to say, oh, well, the sitting president can just dig up whatever files he has access to and release them regardless of what the past administration wants. Is that a precedent we want to set? I don't know if it is or not. I'm for openness in general, but again, I'm an idealist, and nobody who cares about national security would ever listen to what I have to say. So yeah, I mean, this was fun. I don't really stream anymore, so no need to follow me. My last question, which maybe Rob can answer in his closing statement. I don't know anything about this FBI January 6th stuff. I'd love to look at it. The guy who disappeared, I'd love to see any evidence you have for that. I'm just curious if you're as credulous when people on the left say things like, oh, it was white nationalist agitators who started the violence at Black Lives Matter protests. It was FBI, blah, blah, blah. You know, are you as credulous towards those claims of interference on some level in conspiracy as you are towards this idea that it really was an FBI agent that started the violence?
Like for the purpose of like the flow of the conversation, I'll let Rob go before me if he wants to directly respond to Ukerist, if that helps things.
All right, yeah, this will also be your closing statement. Rob, go ahead.
Sure, no problem. So, I'll first just answer a couple things. Iamimportant says he chooses to trust the government and law enforcement. The very people that have told us that the government is systemically racist and law enforcement is systemically racist and made up of white nationalists are now telling you that if you don't trust the premier and the largest law enforcement agency, that you're somehow some crazy conspiracy theorist. So they pick and choose. My point is we have the right to question all law enforcement. We absolutely do. That doesn't mean we should engage in political violence. So it's just funny to see the hypocrites that want to indict law enforcement anytime that they want to and then say, oh, you're a nut for not completely trusting the biggest law enforcement agency. Real quick to answer Ukerist, he talks about white nationalists and if I'm as credulous and going after them. I am for going after anyone that we have any sort of evidence could be behind plotting any sort of political violence, January 6th, anywhere else. I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. What I'm talking about specifically is that we could see actual evidence that there are people that we could see on video who have been named who are actually on the FBI's wanted list for some reason who aren't indicted. And we've seen credible outlets say that the FBI acknowledged that they had informants that were there and that were there beforehand. This Ray Epps character, again, who was the 12th most wanted person who the FBI asked for help in identifying, still is unindicted, despite the fact that we could see him actually cutting down gates and yelling the day before, we need to storm the Capitol. And the Trump supporters are actually yelling, Fed, Fed, don't listen to him. Why all of a sudden did that person disappear? And this happened with a litany of other people. Why is the FBI withholding this evidence? We need to know. That's the point I was making, and I think that it's funny that we see so many people that are saying that despite the fact that there's not a lot of movement for people that want to have this 9/6 or this January 6th committee, and even Hans pointed out all the issues that are more important, we're saying, well, it's important to get to the bottom. It's important to find out what happened. But no one's concerned about subpoenaing Nancy Pelosi's records to see why her surgeon at arms didn't want increased security there, or Mario Bowser's, or the FBI. And so you can see the double standard. The truth is, January 6th is a witch hunt. The left got exactly what they wanted. People that fought with the police, absolutely, they should be punished commensurate to what what Antifa and to what Black Lives Matter get when they attack police. For the people that say that this was unique, it is not. May 30th, 2020, we had Black Lives Matter and other people use Molotov cocktails and storm the White House, trying to remove Donald Trump from the White House. They actually lit a guard building on fire, something that didn't even come close to happening January 6th. And overwhelmingly, the left, at least the establishment left's response, was to laugh at Trump and call him bunker boy because he was forced to go to a bunker because of the people attacking the White House. We don't see unprecedented investigations into that. We're not seeing if the people from Black Lives Matter that did that had connections to and meetings set up with Democrats. This is a witch hunt. They're blowing it way out of proportion what happened January 6th to justify their double standards and witch hunts. Meanwhile, the country is falling apart in a litany of ways. Joe Biden is an empty suit that has dementia that should have never been elected, but it's all part of this establishment game that they've done for the entire time to besmirch people, to smear them because their policies are so unimpressive and so disastrous that they have no choice but to go all in on these crazy conspiracy theories. Lastly, I think it's funny that Sprouticus is saying, I trust the government, things like that. Your entire position is that members of government were secretly involved in an insurrection, and yet you're sitting here talking, well, I choose to trust the government. No, you choose to trust the government agency. You choose to trust the government agency.
Wait. I think he meant IRI. I think he meant IRI.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's a friendly fire on the conservative end of this. Oh, no. Okay, there's two of you here, so which one of you is the informant and the Fed? Like, it's got to be one of the three. Like, there's too many conservatives here for one of you not to be a Fed.
So it's funny to trust some. He impugns people as not trusting the government, but he selectively chooses who he trusts. Lastly, I had fun being here. I thought the moderation was quite good. Really enjoyed myself. My name's Rob Noerr. I stream on Twitch at Rob Noerr, Noerr at Twitch TV. I stream almost every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Also have a YouTube channel and other channels at Normal America with Rob Noerr. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you very much, Rob. And we'll go to Hans, and then we'll go down the rest of the list.
Spectre, thank you so much for having me in your excellent politics panel. I think this proves I can't quit the drug. I can't stop talking to all you crazy people online. It's too good. So I'll definitely do a little bit of political content in the future. I want to thank everyone for having an amazing conversation. Rob, maybe one time we can try some beers and I can get all the books that I should be reading instead of doing deadlifts. I'll do both. I'll listen to them at the gym. I do audiobooks. But again, this was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate all of this. And Spectre, I really hope the panel thing goes well for you. I kind of have to dip. So all the people that are watching me, we're going to raid into Spectre really quick so you can see the end of the closing statements and all that sort of stuff. I really appreciate you guys, but I really gotta go. So thank you so much for this. So this is really fun.
All right, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you and understand you have to dip completely. So thanks for the raid, and have a great night. Sam, go ahead.
Hiya, buddy.
Yeah. I think that I've been pretty clear. I was pretty clear in my opening statements and like the questions is that like this is something that we should probably investigate, and like whether we want to talk about what institutions would be accepting as truth sayers or not, that's another question entirely. I think that there are political mechanisms that are in place that should be running, and we should let those political mechanisms run. And that's really the important bit, that politics happens even when elections aren't. So.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, Sprouticus, if you want to wrap us up.
Right. Yeah. We should always trust the FBI. Oh, wait, I forgot Waco. Ah, crap. Ruby Ridge. Oh, you know what? USA Gymnastics. Okay? The government is not to be trusted. The founding fathers made that very clear. They understood that the government was a necessary evil in order to have this country be what it is. They understood it was necessary evil, and they put restrictions on it in the Constitution. Those restrictions have been since forgotten about, and they have moved far. The federal government has moved far greater than what it was ever intended to be. And so, yes, I believe that we should investigate the FBI. I do not think the FBI is 100% perfect, as the three topics I just mentioned. If you guys are interested, it just happened recently. USA Gymnastics, look it up. There's a huge thing with the FBI on that one. So it's completely ridiculous to say that we shouldn't investigate the FBI to see if they had any wrongdoing in this. I think this January 6th committee is a partisan hack. They decided to take an unprecedented action by removing Republicans from the committee and not letting the Republicans have their voices be heard. And so this is completely ridiculous, and it needs to be seen as that. The January 6th committee has since become a partisan hack. And so if you liked my views or you hated my views, come give me a follow at twitch.tv/thesprouticus, or come give me a follow at twitter.com/thesprouticus.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks everybody for coming. This was a lot of fun. First panel that I've hosted, so definitely some things that I will do differently next time, but I appreciate you guys showing up